Ladies and gentlemen, Diamond Podcasting Productions presents The Shoot, a pro wrestling podcast, with your hosts, Dan Burke and Drew McKenzie.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Shoot. We are back once again. We have not been canceled yet. We are picking up views and subscribers, though, which is a great thing, and I never thought I would be saying this also at that point. Be sure to like and subscribe here on The Shoot, and also, of course, a part of the Diamond Podcast Productions Network. And again, we're back for another episode. Finally, just starting to get over our Super Bowl hangover. Ain't that right, Mac, my co-host?
It's funny. I went to work the next day. I regretted that decision very quickly, by the way. And I was not the only one with stories. But I think, it's funny, I think probably about 3 people ended up leaving early that next Monday morning. It was not a great day at all, to say the least. But happy to be here, at least. No hangover today, thankfully. Not yet, anyways.
Whether it's the drinking or other things that people might partake in, even though that really doesn't leave a hangover. I don't know what was worse for them, the loss in the prop bets or the hangover. Because
a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. So I think I always feel like we talked about this throughout the week and maybe even on the last show, but like I'm not getting drawn into that. Like I'll bet on a winner and that's it. Especially in this day and age, yeah, because it's just so rapidly accessible on like these apps now, and I'm glad I didn't bet.
No, I'm glad I didn't either, because for the third time in the last 5 years, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are your Super Bowl champions. Congratulations to them, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. Fuck you, Travis Kelce. But that's besides the point on that end. You're not better than Gronk. We're going to put that out there now. You're not. You're not better than Gronk.
Not my champions. Champions.
You really, at this point, though, being New England Patriots loyalists, you really have to sit there and look at what Patrick Mahomes is doing and just say, he's got the talent. Like, I can't. He's not someone that I can sit here and knock and say that he hasn't earned any of this. It's not like he lucked in there or any of that situation, because let's face it, he has the talent, he has the ability, he has led that team to a championship for the third time, even though his defense kind of kept him alive throughout the year, especially that game against Baltimore, which I did not expect. Baltimore's defense in that championship, in the conference championship game coming into that, I thought was the overwhelming favorite. They even mentioned it. They said every team that we went up against, everybody was saying that we were going to lose. And a lot of people, including myself, against San Francisco, thought that the 49ers were finally going to end their streak of back-to-back losses at the Super Bowl, where they started out 5-0, and now they have lost their third consecutive. And they don't seem like a team that lost the Super Bowl, and everybody's thinking, oh, we'll just come back next year. Now I feel like they're dealing with almost like a sense of identity loss, because there's questions about coaching, there's questions about talent. It's like they have an excellent team that probably next year is going to be just as good, but everybody is sitting there and questioning their morale and where the team direction is going to go, which is really surprising of a Super Bowl loser. Kind of this early anyways. It's like the first week and everybody's talking about, well, where do the 49ers go from here?
It was like the first 2 days.
Yeah, it was so like really instantly. It was just like, well, what are the 49ers going to do? Are they going to make a coaching change? And it's just like, yeah, Kyle Shanahan this is the second Super Bowl he's been able to get you there in the last 5 years. I mean, yeah, you've lost two, but also at the same time, it's because of the fact that you went up against a guy that literally is the best at his position right now. And
How much did it pain you to say that, by the way?
Oh,
I heard the hesitation in the voice, so I figured I would ask. But
the only good thing about the whole thing with me that kind of that gives me hope at the end of the night and also helps me sleep at night is the fact that Brady beat Mahomes twice on his way out the door in the AFC Championship game one year and then the Super Bowl the next. It's like, okay, I can at least get I can go to bed now and have that, because it's like, okay, he never beat Brady in a meaningful game. And I kept repeating that to a friend of mine who we know, Boomerang, about the Chiefs. And I kept repeating that. I said, Mahomes has never beat him in a meaningful game, especially going into that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. I was like, he's never beat him in a meaningful game. And he still has never beat him in a meaningful game. And he'll never get the one-upmanship. It's like Brady's like, I'm done. Can't do nothing now. And now they're going to approve him as the minority owner for the Las Vegas Raiders. It's so weird saying that just because of the fact it's like in the 1970s and the 1980s, all those documentaries where it was just like, you know, the famous orchestra tune, and then they just come in with they're just like, in the autumn days of Oakland, the Raiders begin their pillage of the 1975 season.
I mean, who would think, though, especially in our age group, right, that Las Vegas, other than for gambling, would be this huge destination for newer sports teams and stuff, right? Granted, the Raiders are not newer, but they moved from Oakland to Las Vegas. You have
storied history.
Yeah,
very storied history.
Exactly. You have the Kings and other teams looking into a potential jump to Vegas, and that's a huge boost not only to that region in general, but just to the overall sports betting. I'm sure that goes on over there too. It's crazy to me to think about how, like we knew somebody out there. I'm not going to name names or name drop or anything like that, but we know somebody out there that is a very big Chicago fan because that was the nearest team that was being broadcast.
Yeah,
and looking at it now, he's like, I don't know if I'll ever be a Kings fan. Like, just because he just doesn't know if he really would, or the Golden Knights, excuse me. I don't know why I kept saying Kings, but he doesn't know if he's going to be a Golden Knight fan. And I'm sure it's the same thing with the Raiders, because coming out of Oakland, like, do they really care? I'm sure that maybe a future generation might care about that, but, the existing fan base probably is not going to care. They might go to see a game or two, but other than that, it's a huge boon to, obviously the tourism, but it's just kind of funny to think about how far they have come in that kind of sector of, sports entertainment, ironically enough, to have these sports teams now playing there. It's just crazy to me.
Well, the thing about the Raiders is the fact that usually when a team moves to a city that kind of like when the Sonics left Seattle, they went to Oklahoma City.
It's so funny. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking about the Supersonics.
Right, but they don't have the storied history that the Raiders do. The Raiders, I mean, as much as people want to sit in, if there was another person on this program if I came out and said that I've always kind of, I wouldn't say a closet Raiders fan, but more or less I respect the tradition of that ball club.
I know exactly what he'd be saying right now. Don't worry.
Yeah, and I respect the tradition of that ball club in the sense of Al Davis is a fascinating story. If anybody really wants to dive in deep about kind of how the history of the league began, and also he was the former commissioner of the AFL, then bought the Raiders, and was the coach of the Raiders at one point. The story is completely fascinating.
Yep.
And how he was and also how he fought the league and won at certain points in the 1980s, which is why they moved from LA, back to Oakland, back to Oakland, back to LA so many times. Where I said back to Oakland twice, that was not for effect. It was more or less just that's how it's been. He has moved that team back and forth so many times. And now they're in Vegas. They have that beautiful stadium that they built, which I guess next year, currently, the rumor was last year that WrestleMania 41 was going to be taking in Minnesota at the new Vikings facility. And that I think was the big.
I think I see why you're saying that, by the way.
And now they're going to the Raiders. Now they could be in Las Vegas.
Yep.
For WrestleMania 41.
Correct. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I can kind of see why they would maybe potentially want to move away from the Vikings facility. I don't know how much they're going to want to have an association with the Vikings because of a former player.
Oh, I don't know though if that would. That's an interesting point. I never thought about that. Never. Yeah,
yeah, that was
I've
actually
never
my initial thought. I didn't know if potentially that's why, right?
Yeah.
You never know, but one of the legacies they're trying to erase, aside from Mr. McMahon, is that of Brock Lesnar.
Yes.
So I'm almost curious if that has anything to kind of do with it. I don't know. I honestly don't really care. I would say, however, that Vegas is definitely a strong contender to host WrestleMania for sure.
Well, I think it's just well, we've talked about it before. With their key basis is who's gonna pay them.
Yeah.
Who's gonna offer them the most money, and then on top of that, they're gonna go to a tourist city 10 times out of 10. Like, they're not going to go someplace. It's just, let's face it.
I'm sorry. Philadelphia?
Philadelphia's a tourist city.
All right.
It's a tourist city.
Learn something new every day, I guess. I never would have thought of that.
You could go and, if you're Nicolas Cage, go and steal the Declaration of Independence. So, I mean.
I had a feeling that might come up. And honestly, I'm surprised it took this long into the show. We're in the third episode. You're talking the road to WrestleMania. I'm actually going to switch the slide right now, because why not? And we're talking about the Declaration of Independence getting stolen. So, this is what you learn, folks. You learn about the Declaration of Independence getting stolen, and Aztec gold, and God knows what else he does in those movies.
I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. Are you? Are you? Benjamin Gates. I mean, of course his fucking first name has to be Benjamin. It's just like, of course.
Yeah, no, because his middle name was Franklin. Franklin Gates. Like, come on, man. Really?
Oh,
you couldn't do
God.
a little bit more original than that?
I kind of wish his dad was John Voight from Ray Donovan, where he was just a complete fuck up. Like,
I mean, he kind of was in the second movie. I guess he was in both movies, but not nearly as bad as that. Yeah.
The first one, he was just an old curmudgeon, just trying to be like, "Oh, this is bullshit. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
I've been telling you since you were a kid."
My God, I completely forgot about that movie too until you said it. Oh my God, he's so.
Everybody
miserable.
needs to get reminded about National Treasure, because you know what?
I don't even mean that. I mean the curmudgeon wasn't the other movie, but. Jeez.
Of course.
But
well, everybody needs to get reminded because they're actually decent flicks.
No,
like, I don't
funny.
hate them.
When I went to DC over the summer, we did a bus tour around DC. They let you out at a couple places and stuff. But the way back, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. And you know what movie he played on the way home? National Treasure.
Of course he did.
I was like, come on, man, really?
Really?
Ironically enough, we did not go to the National Archive to see it that day, so I thought it was kind of funny that he played that. I was like, oh, I guess I didn't have to go anyways.
I ended up at Georgetown, and then I went to, which I'm kind of mad that somebody reminded me of it today, that that's where they shot a lot of things for The Exorcist. So I'm like, damn it! why didn't I go? Like, and try to look at which was the house and I guess the staircase, which would have been kind of cool to see on the tour. But seeing the White House up close, going to get a really good look at the Capitol, which probably was the best tour I was ever on ever. Just because you're sitting there in rooms where decisions are being made or people are trying to raid, apparently. It's like, where's the guy with the antlers? Where did he stand?
Oh man, don't talk about antlers after the past couple of weeks with Michael Cole, please.
No, let's not. That's true. He's still. I think I could still hear him echoing in my head from the Royal Rumble.
He brought it up again on Raw this week, and even McAfee was just like, "What's with you and the horns, man?"
It's just like this one thing he's just hooked on.
Yeah,
seriously. It's just it's become his new Boomer Sooner. I think it's just like the antlers.
Oh my God!
Christ Almighty, Mike, calm down.
Yep, settle down. I agree.
So did you hear we're on the road?
I might have heard something about that.
Yeah, I guess where we're going, we don't need roads, but this.
I don't know. Somebody does. I don't know who. maybe the Rock. I don't know.
Or Seth Rollins at this point. What the fuck is he doing?
So let's get into that. Let's not even start with Monday just yet. But the trailer. What did you think about that? Just the trailer itself, with how they kind of did the press conference and everything, and then having that trailer where the four of them are kind of facing off.
I mean, it definitely. I don't know if I'm one of the. You really can't do it a full one yet because I don't know what women's match you're going to have on top.
Yeah,
because Becky and Rhea is supposedly going to be the Raw championship match for women, but then you have Bayley and Io, which Bayley and Io I think is just going to be a better story just because it's been long-term built. Where I think. Becky's story pretty much is just like, I need to be able to beat you so I could get back on top. Because there's question marks about Becky if this is going to be her last hurrah. So, because her contract's up. So is Seth. Yep. And there are questions for both because both of them are kind of like, at least Seth physically, you don't know. He's probably questioning how long he can hold up. And Becky, I think, is getting their kick in the tires for a career in Hollywood. So,
yep.
So
Becky
either one of them.
Too.
Yeah. Which actually I just pre-ordered this week, an autograph copy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'll be, of course, I'll never read it. I'll just put it on my Kindle. Because it's like there's only 2 times I think I've read books with autographs, and that was I read the Ozzy book cover to cover, and then the Steve Austin book I read parts of, but then I was so afraid to do anything with it because I'm like, signed. I don't, signed books, reading them, unless it's like, an author that they do a lot of these and stuff of that nature where they, like Dean Koontz or, John Grisham or some of these guys are probably dead, but I'm just saying, a lot of these guys, you sign their book or they sign the book. Yeah, you can read it. Like there's no big deal but when you're talking about a celebrity, it's a bit difficult to read the book because if you get it signed, it's like you want to be able to preserve it and not crease anything and things of that nature.
Right.
For either future display issues, or if you're going to resell it. Which, when you're in a financial straits, sometimes you need to make decisions of just like, what's I know that's going to make sell to make money.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, like where they're only probably going to write like 1 to a few books, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of justify reading it like that because you're right. That's probably going to be some kind of a collector item down the road at some point.
Right. And I think that's which is my kind of, has always been kind of my thought process with all of it. But, now the question is with Becky, she's got the book coming out. She's got Hollywood kicking the tires. So how long is she going to want to keep doing this? And Rhea's been unbeatable. You haven't been able to beat her, and no one has been able to really beat her in over a year. She's never really also been in a position of danger in over a year. Like, anybody that they put up against Rhea Ripley in the last year, it's just automatic. It's just like, this is...
I mean,
she's had a title reign, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
She's had a title reign that it's like, it's been dominant, but it's also been very selective dominant. Because, they put her up against people that that they're always going to be the underdog, but some of these people are just like the underdog. Like Zelina Vega. I love her. But at the same time, it's like, are you really ever going to beat her? No.
No, and like, that's the thing, though. Like, at Backlash, when she had that fight, yeah, it was big for the Puerto Rican crowd, and total props to how they did that. It was an awesome show, including that. But you just knew. You knew. And to your point of she's never really looked as strong as she has as champion at this point. Even going into that fatal 5-way, you knew she was walking out champion.
Yep.
You just knew. I feel like this year, you mentioned Becky. It's probably going to be Becky. I think if anybody is closer than Becky, it might be Liv Morgan. But I feel like if it's Liv, she's probably still going to lose. I hate to say that, but it's just kind of the way it's looking right now. But I do agree that I think Becky might need it a little bit more.
That would be a natural kind of selection, too,
Correct.
Because they were women's tag team champions at one point.
She's more or less, quote-unquote, the reason she's been out, too. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
But,
So, no. I was just going to actually... You just picked up on what I was going to say anyways. But no, that's true. And I think that story... Yeah, you can make it. Which also, if Liv came back and won the Royal Rumble, that could have been doable too, because you could have been like, well, she's going to go after Rhea.
I think,
and also that would be a good story. And because I look at Liv Morgan and I just say, all right, is she one of the smaller people in the company as far as women is concerned? Yeah, she's not going to be able to meet the athleticism of a Rhea or. Right. Bianca Belair, but she's gonna give you a fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that's the thing, and she proved that against Ronda, where she pretty much was able to get like the entire audience behind her against Ronda. So
I don't think that's anything.
It's not hard
for her, though. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's indicative of Liv Morgan. I think it's indicative of people's dislike for Ronda Rousey. I agree with you, though. I just feel that in terms of the Rumble, the bigger story is the Bayley story in terms of the women's division.
Without question.
And so let's touch on that just real quick, because when we did the show last week, we hadn't seen SmackDown. How did you feel about Dakota Kai kind of coming out in defense of Bayley? That's going to bite her in the ass at all, or you think that's how you feeling?
Dakota is a heel, in my opinion. She's just a natural heel.
Yep.
What she was able to do in NXT with Tegan Nox.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
She had a great heel turn on that.
She did. Yep.
And that's where I feel like that it's going to go. The problem is Bayley's got to go over.
That's
like it's
exactly
just
why I'm asking the question.
That's the problem that I have, where it's like, okay, I feel like this is a trap, but at the same time, it's not a. It's a trap, but I feel like Bayley will kind of have it in the back of her mind. As Corey Graves always reminded Bayley and Sasha Banks, Sasha's just one step away from turning on you, Bayley. And he always reminded her of that.
Yep.
So it's just like, I think with that natural kind of, and plus at the same time, all these heel tactics and that stuff is stuff she's employed the last few years. So I feel like she's smart enough where she's just going to be like just like how she's been this whole time. Of just like she spoke Japanese, so she was able to tell with everything that they've been kind of talking bad about her and all this stuff. So Bailey, I feel like is kind of, and also with the lead pipe,
Yep.
literally just putting it in the corner. She expected that was going to happen to her, and she was able to fight everybody off. So I feel like that, yes, she is probably expecting Dakota Kai to lay down a banana peel for her or hit her with the blue shell right before. But I don't think that it is going to really slow her down. I think the natural progression is Bailey to win at WrestleMania.
I think it has to be. I agree.
Yeah. And it's just, and that's nothing to really hark on with Io. I think Io has had a great reign. It's been an unexpected reign, just because the fact it's lasted this long coming into WrestleMania, which I was thoroughly happy for, because I'm just like, that's going to be a natural one with her. There's going to be someone in that group that's going to ask for or receive a title shot, and that's going to cause a dissension.
Yep.
And then especially when they brought in Kairi Sane and Asuka, I was like, oh, this is really going to start pushing them, because now it's like they're really going to, because you look at Bailey and it's just like, well, obviously she's the odd girl out now. So you just have to go with, okay. So Bailey, though, I feel like is going to be able to pull it off. Like, and this is just another kind of page of that story of just like, okay, can I trust her? Is she going to screw me over? Is she going to try to screw me over? But I'm going to know what's going to happen. Because I hate contested finishes at WrestleMania. So her losing by Dakota Kai screwing her over at WrestleMania would just be, oh, all that for that. Like, of what you have to do the turn if you're going to do it before Mania. If you do it at Mania, people are going to shit all over it.
I agree. My initial thought process when I first saw this go down last Friday, at this point, was that I feel like Dakota's going to be in her corner, and then at the end of the match, she's probably going to help her win, raise her arm, and then just like clothesline her, short arm clothesline, and then that'll be the next feud for Bayley as champion. Will be against Dakota Kai, just because she wants to fight for whatever reason. It just, that's kind of how I sniffed it out on Friday, where it just kind of had that vibe, right? Where it's just like they don't trust each other, they're not going to trust each other. They're going to celebrate in the ring at Mania when Bayley wins, and then that's when Dakota's going to turn. It gets Io out of the picture, and it's another stepping stone for Bayley to kind of have an additional feud with a former Damage Control member. So I don't know. That's at least the vibe I've been getting lately from it.
Well, I mean, that's a fair assessment. My thought is that, yeah, with that group, you're able now where Bayley can run the gauntlet.
Yep.
She could face every person in that group and have a feud with each one of them if she wanted to. After she dispatches of Io, I think it's natural for them to do that at the end, where Dakota just goes in there and all happy and just bam, clothesline.
Yep.
And that sets you up. That works. I mean, what if it's Asuka, or if Kairi Sane are kind of the ones that they're the lead off people going out of that, where Bayley costs them the tag team titles, or Dakota Kai and Bayley team up and they challenge them for the tag team titles, and then Bayley wins at WrestleMania, and then Bayley's got 2 belts. Like, there's so many kind of scenarios I think that you can pull this off to kind of make Bayley and Kyrie more Io, excuse me. Bayley and Io more meaningful, with them as tag team champions, Dakota and Bayley coming in. that's a way you can pull it off too. That's happened, but I don't know if they're going to want to have kind of two belts person again. You know, they kind of want to set up each belt in their own division type deal, which if you look at the tag team title, especially for women, it has been nothing but snake bit in the last few years.
I really didn't like when they combined the NXT Women's Tag Team Championship with the regular WWE one. I
Right.
hated that. I just hate it. Like, I don't even know how else to say it. And it's funny because, like, I could see why they would have done it, but they could have sent, you know, women from Raw and SmackDown down to NXT to do stuff with them. They could have kept it the way it was, even though nobody was really going to end up beating Rousey and Baszler anyways. It's just, it got annoying to me that they did that. I still find it somewhat annoying. And then there's that whole, you know, are they cursed? Because everybody was getting injured. And then, you know, freaking Cardona coming out with the women's tag team champion replica. It was just one of those situations that I hate it. I think lately it's kind of been on the upswing, honestly. Ever since Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, or Casey Catanzaro, whatever you want to call her, came up with them, have been going back and forth with them. You're seeing more and more women's tag team championship matches for, you know, everybody basically, or at least those getting number one contender shots for the titles, whichever it may be. I'm glad, especially considering the original plan as to why Sasha and Naomi walked out comparatively. But it's just a situation where, for me, I don't care who holds them anymore. I don't. If it's Bailey and Dakota Kai, I'm okay with that because it does make a build. But you're right to the extent of, does it matter? And do they want people with multiple titles at once? You know, there's still that question of when are they ever going to split up the men's tag team championships? They still have the undisputed ones.
Yeah, that's surprising that they've gone this long with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because they have enough tag teams now on each brand that they could.
They did before.
Yeah, they absolutely. But I think that I understood why they did it.
Oh, same. Yeah.
With the Usos, the problem that I have is that, you know, now it's time where you kind of have to break it up. Like, you have to make it. You have to have each brand be able to fight for, because you have tag teams on each brand, like the Street Profits and others who, for a while, and I love using this phrase, but it means something where sometimes with booking with talent that should be in a higher position, but they're not. You know, you look at the Street Profits and some other tag teams where they've just been pissing in the wind. They've had nothing to fight for. And
absolutely,
you have to be able now to. Why they didn't do it with Owens and Zayn at one point is surprising to me. You know, because they had to do it with the rebranding of the women's championships.
Yep.
They rebranded. So they could have just rebranded for the tag team championships where everybody was separate. And you had, instead of one tag team champion. Yeah. Exactly. It doesn't. Are people going to accept it for the Usos and the Bloodline storyline? Absolutely. Are they going to accept it when you split them up so that way each tag team on each brand have something to fight for instead of just one championship on both shows?
I mean, that's the thing to me, especially like the last couple of weeks going into this week, where you have, like, the brand doesn't even matter again. Like, no. You have SmackDown guys facing Raw guys for opportunities in the Elimination Chamber. It's like, why? You could just do a bunch of matches for Raw guys, a bunch of matches for SmackDown guys, or keep it all on Raw, because that's where Seth Rollins has the actual title they would be fighting for. Whichever. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But at the same token, in terms of naming conventions, like you said, they had to rebrand them, which I absolutely agree with, because it never made sense to have like a couple of years ago, Becky and Charlotte swapped titles, and the shit show that ensued. Like three of them want to fight in the back afterwards.
That caused some heat.
It did, absolutely.
Yeah.
But not only that, is now they're transferable. It doesn't matter. Addition to that is that, when you talk about the tag titles, you've had WWE Tag Team Champions and World Tag Team Champions, whatever, at the same time. Why do I do it with us too? And you mentioned, Sammy and KO would have been the perfect time. And once they're done, they're done. And now it's with the Judgment Day. Before it was, in the middle of that was Cody and Jey Uso. You could have done it then. You could have said, hey, we're just going to rebrand those for Raw. And SmackDown can have their own. That can be a tournament. And that, I feel, is probably the way it should have gone down. But here we are months later, and we still only have one set of tag team titles. It's just weird. It's just, I don't know how else to say it. It's just weird.
I just don't, I never understood when they unified championships as much as 2 years ago, that idea, we're going to do Brock versus Roman and unify the titles. It's like, for what?
Because Roman had COVID, still. I guess? I don't know.
Yeah, it was at 38. It was at Mania 38, and the idea of it was, I'm like, for what? Like, and then Roman has not lost the championship since, and on top of that, has pretty much held it hostage because
I was going to say you have to actually defend it,
right? And it's just like I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, we're doing this again? Like, because they have done this so many times where they tell you, they're like, this is for one championship, one undisputed title. They did it back in 2013, 2014.
Yep.
And then they had to separate them again for some stupid reason. For the brand extension in 2016. Universal, WWE Championship. And then a couple of years later, we're going to unify the titles again. And then a year later, because Roman doesn't want to show up, it's like, we have created a new are you fucking serious? Like, you just dilute the lineages. That's it. That's all you're doing. You dilute lineages, where it's just like, okay, so this guy, he's not going to show up. So we're just going to create another championship. It's like, fuck. So Seth was the interim world champion, I guess, right? That how we're doing it? If Seth was the interim champion, fucking poor. I feel bad for him because he's coming to this Mania now, and it's like no one gives a shit. Like, because everybody's focused on Cody and Roman and the Rock scenario, like the fucking.
So let's talk about that. Yeah, let's start there for a second, right? So, first of all, they're all four of them are in the trailer. I think Seth Rollins plays some kind of a role. I don't know what that is. If you listen to him on Monday Night Raw this past week, he's going to be Cody's shield and wants Cody to accept that. And, talks about how Roman is this monster that he created and all this other stuff, which, recycled lines, be that as it may, was not a bad promo. By either one, by Cody or by Seth, obviously, who had more talking time. Cody mentions the fact that he got slapped in the mouth by The Rock in public, and okay, I don't know how that's different from in private, but you never know. And it is what it is. And then the SmackDown prior, they're not there. Paul Heyman comes out, talks to Nick Aldis, talks to Triple H, and tells Triple H, I'll be here with my tribal chief next week. It's on the slide right now. Rock also will be with Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman this Friday on SmackDown. This is why we did this segment, because it's really weird how this is all kind of coming together. Something big is going to go down, and they're going to have something in store for us, especially for the 40th anniversary of WrestleMania. But man, it's building in a weird way. I have no idea what to expect out of this anymore.
I think that's why that this is probably one of the most intriguing main event scenarios in years.
I 100% agree.
Because none of us know what is going to happen, which is a blessing at certain points, because there were so many years where you could tell a year out, 6 months out, where things were going. Who is going to be challenging the champion at WrestleMania? You knew. For years it was like that. You knew the way that they were going to move around. And this time you don't. Like we have no idea. There is no definitive road. There is no set plan. Everything's out the fucking window. Could it be night one is a tag team match between Cody and Seth against Roman and Rock? Could it be The Rock and Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship on night one of WrestleMania? It's all in play. Everything right now for this WrestleMania, for as far as the Cody Rhodes, Rock, Roman, and now Seth Rollins scenario is in play. The only thing definitive is that Roman and Cody will main event night two as the most important match of those 2 nights. It is set in stone.
Yep.
Where that goes, we don't know. Is Cody going to finish his story? If he doesn't finish his story, they might riot in Philly. It has to happen.
I agree.
I
agree.
You cannot do that. You cannot have that go that way in that city. If Roman Reigns is still the champion after, you are going to cause a problem.
Yep.
Because that city is the wrong time to do that. Cody has to go over. If you want to be able to live to see the next day, Cody has to go over. That is, you can't do. We are talking about a city that they threw snowballs at Santa Claus at during a fucking Eagles game. We are talking about a city that celebrated winning the Super Bowl by eating horse shit. These fucking people are crazy.
This is why I asked, like, is it really a tourist destination? Why I asked the question. So another story from this week, and I mentioned this in the chat that Dan and I have with another friend. This week, Steve Austin said he would be open to returning for more matches. Didn't specify when, didn't say anything else. I'm going to have two kind of, I guess, I don't want to say fanboy, but I guess it is kind of fanboy scenarios. If we all know the bloodline is going to interfere in this, and that The Rock is potentially part of that at this point. For night two, specifically talking about the match with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, it'd be really great to have Steve Austin come out and reignite a feud with The Rock after like 20-something years. I think that would be something special. Is it going to be like a full-blown match? Obviously not. But just that history that those two had, I think is huge.
Kind of like Rock and Roman's corner and Steve Austin and Cody's corner. That would be sick.
I mean, listen, I see it this way, right? And you know, say what you want, but I feel like Solo's going to try to interfere.
Of course.
Out comes Seth Rollins. Out comes The Rock for a 2-on-1.
Right.
And then that glass is going to shatter. And out comes Steve Austin. That seems the most likely of those scenarios. But then all four of those guys are out there in the corners of their respective peeps.
I mean, like I said, everything's in play. We really don't know, I think, where this thing is going to go, which is a fucking blessing. Because the last thing I want is to be able sometimes, because there's been some manias, especially in the last decade, where I've come in and I've just been like, well, I guess I know where this is going. Like, I think the one in Dallas, 32, it was Roman versus Triple H. I'm like, there's no fucking way Triple H is rotating.
Dude, even 38 with him and Brock.
38, you knew. 33, I knew.
Yeah.
That was Roman and Taker. I was like, yeah, I know where this is going.
Yeah, everybody, I feel, knew that one was going to happen. As much as you didn't want it to, you kind of knew in the back of your head.
You knew in the back of your head when Taker could barely walk, you're like, yeah, I know where this is going.
Yeah, true.
It's just, you knew. So, and that's been the problem. Like, that's been the issue with the company at certain points of they have been predictable. And they have been so cookie cutter. Everything has got to be this shape. Everything has got to be perfect. Now, in their eyes, perfect. In our eyes, it's like, what is this?
Well said.
But, yeah, it's just they think that everything is so neat and nicely tight. The way that WWE has come across at so many points, even in years where they've just been plainly terrible, the wrapping paper is always spectacular. The bow's great. The paper is fine. There's not a crease in anything. Everything in the wrapping paper is perfect. The presentation there's never been a question about their presentation as far as the wrapping paper, the bows, and how everything is put together as far as the packaging is concerned. It's what you get in the package that could be the problem. It's a surprise. It's a fucking mystery box. It could be a pile of shit, or it could be 12 gold booyahs. Like, that's the type of scenario that you work with WWE and their booking.
All I can think of is Forrest Gump right now.
Lieutenant Dan, it's just you don't know where
what
you
don't
know
get.
where you don't know. Life is like a box of chocolates.
Oh my god!
But that's just been them as a company. Like, and it's been difficult. It's been hard to. That is why AEW was incepted, because they wanted to be the alternative. They wanted to be that company that wanted to fill the need of the hardcore wrestling fans. It felt like that things were just going to be the same.
But I mean,
for a lot of years, it was the same.
Though, at that point, in like 17, 18, 19, can you really blame them? Like, we needed an alternative at that point because Vince is off his rocker.
19 was one of the most horrendous years in that company and WWE's history.
Yeah.
Like, every show was just like, oh, this is so bad. And you kept watching because you're thinking it's going to get bad. Oh, it's so bad. Like, it's just every single month, things just got worse and worse. I mean, coming into 2020, even after that year, Roman Reigns was just like, I'm leaving. He was that close to just being like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And then COVID happened, and then that's when things kind of needed to, like, they had the whole, like, I can't blame them for the Thunderdome era. Like, everybody, they put out such shit content. It's like, look at least they put shit out on a consistent basis. They were there every week where nothing else was on television. And they at least, live sports weren't on. Baseball started late. The NBA didn't get back together for another 7 months.
True.
The NHL, same thing. So we really had nothing, except the only thing that kind of kept us going was pro wrestling. So both companies, that too. Yeah. I may never financially recover from this.
Man.
That's me every week when I look at my invoices of what I spent on wrestling figures. I may never recover from this. But they had problems before that. As Mac had brought it up, 17, 18, 19, it was just like the old man is off his fucking rocker. And there were some bright spots. I still remember when it's 2019, the best brand for WWE was NXT. mostly because of the Undisputed Era.
Yeah.
But it's just a simple
But even
fact as
that,
it was.
it's like Undisputed Era and like what else? It was just so inconsistent, and
I know that goddamn
stunk.
theme song had everybody going.
Yeah,
Like,
that was it though. But again, it was just, it sucked because you had a lot of those segments could have been decent, but you have Vince in the back, like almost trying to relive like other things he had done in the past, and it just nothing stuck. No matter what he threw against the wall, nothing stuck, and it stunk the joint up. And like you said about COVID, like it got a little bit better. They benefited from it because they were the only real sport entity entertainment on.
Right.
I 100% agree with that. And like this, like I stopped watching for a long time, anyways, and I got back into it like the tail end of that when they had just kind of started getting back into arenas again, and there was a huge benefit from that. And I also think that a bigger benefit was bringing Triple H back into creative because you look at the stuff we have now and you're like why didn't this happen sooner again?
I'll never forget because we talk about how bad 2019 is.
Yep.
And the Survivor Series that year was pretty dope. I gotta admit.
Okay.
I remember actually you would stop by that weekend, right?
Okay.
And
I forgot which one it was.
It was the night of Survivor Series.
Okay.
And you're just like, well, maybe I'll stay for a couple matches. And you watched the whole event.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
You were just like, and that was the best show of the year. Like it was so fun, but that was also because it was not only WWE, Raw and SmackDown, but NXT was involved too.
Yeah, that's true.
So there were a lot of things that were like, wow, this is really cool. And the matches were good. I think it was Brock and Rey Mysterio, which that was fun. Because Brock against smaller guys is always excellent. Like he 3 years in a row, he had probably the best match on the card for Survivor Series because he fought AJ Styles in 2017, 2018. I believe it was Brian Danielson. And then 2019, of course, was Rey Mysterio. So it was like 3 years in a row where he had probably the best match I felt like on the Survivor Series card. So, and then I think they did War Games in 2022. I think was the first one they did War Games, if I'm not mistaken. It was when
2022.
Yeah, which has definitely raised the bar even farther for them. For that event. But yeah, it was, you were over for that, and we were just like, well, that was fun. Like, I came out of that surprised, and then the Royal Rumble, I remember, picked up, which was a weird one, because that was the one Drew won, and then Brock he drew the number one slot, and he was there. Everybody had come in, and Brock was just throwing them out. It was fantastic. And then Drew knocked him out. Drew won the Rumble. But that was also the same day Kobe Bryant died in the helicopter crash. So that took a lot of wind out of everybody's sails.
Yep.
And then 2 months later, everybody was in lockdown. WrestleMania was in front of no fans. And we were just like, wow, how are things going to... And now 4 years later, it's like we're looking at the road to WrestleMania, and it's just like there's so many exits and so many stops along the way that we don't know where this is going to go. Like, we have no idea where the road is going to take us. We have no idea where things are going to end up. We have no idea who's going to walk out as champion. I have a pretty good idea, but at the same time, they're going to still find a way. The problem is that, and this is a statistic that everybody needs to might find fascinating.
Oh man, lay it out.
So Cody Rhodes is the fourth person ever to win back-to-back Rumbles.
Correct.
In 1990 and 1991, Hulk Hogan, the first Royal Rumble that he won, he lost the championship at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 7, but he won the 91 Rumble, and then he won at WrestleMania 7. And then, of course, we go to 95, 96. HBK wins the Rumble, loses at WrestleMania 11. wins the 96 Rumble, wins at WrestleMania 12. We go to 97, 98 with Steve Austin. Austin won the 97 Rumble. Wasn't even involved in the WrestleMania main event for 90 at WrestleMania 13. But then he wins the Rumble in 98 and he wins at WrestleMania. Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble last year, lost at WrestleMania. This year, wins the Royal Rumble. If it's happened 3 times before, they're not going to have somebody go back to back at the Rumble and lose 2 years in a row.
I listen. As soon as he won the Rumble, especially over Punk, you just knew at that point what was going to happen. Whether it was Rollins or Roman Reigns, I don't think it really matters. The end result is the same, and Cody's going to win. I have to say it that way because, listen, at the end of the day, obviously they had something in mind, and whether we want to say it's a shoot, a work, or them listening to the fans, who knows? I think he was not going to be in the main event, truthfully. I just don't. Why come out and almost give up your spot and then come out like 5, 6, 7 days later and be like, actually, this is bullshit. I'm going to be in the main event. Like, I think they listened to the fans because there was a good amount of pushback from a lot of different people, us included, to say that, hey, no, this needs to be Cody. It's Cody's time. You don't need The Rock in this main event. We talked about it in the show last time. I feel like we've talked about it every time. So this shit all went down, but you don't need The Rock anymore to sell a WrestleMania. Is it going to be a huge main event if it was in it? Yeah. Yeah, sure, absolutely. But not against Roman Reigns, especially when the title would have been on the line, most likely.
It'll be fun to see what Rock's response is.
Tomorrow,
this week.
For this week, whatever
for
we
this
call
week.
it. It's just recording on Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. Depending if this comes out Friday or Saturday.
Right.
The Rock.
Exactly. Then we're like, this already happened, guys.
It's already happened. Damn it. You guys are so timely with your releases. Oh. So all these basement dwellers just sitting there and just being like spam.
Oh,
well,
man.
actually.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Fucking E-drones that we are. So I want to
fucking E-drones. You guys never talk about AEW Revolution. You're not going to talk about Revolution.
We talked AEW last week, and we'll probably do it again because it's prepped and ready to go if we need it.
They're a safe shop, right?
Yeah. Fucking Sammy Guevara, man. Anyways, before we just ruin that, I got one more kind of fanboy scenario I want to run by you.
Shoot.
What if? So last year there was a good shot that somebody came out for Cody, but it was obviously Sami Zayn and KO. What if this year, in addition to Seth Rollins, you finally bring back Shattered Dreams and have him be in Cody's corner? Especially if he's gonna win. That's my whole thing.
I don't know.
I think he would get a huge reaction. I really do. Because nobody's seen him in there for ages. Obviously, we're talking about Dustin Rhodes, a.k.a. Goldust, when he was in WWE.
He's still under contract, though.
He is, but for one night, I think for Cody, he might do it. I think for Cody, Tony Khan might be like, you know what? Okay.
Well, the thing about it is that everything from that press conference, when Roman said what he said about Dusty, saying that your dad, you're just as irrelevant as your dad. It's like,
right.
I remember hearing that comment and just being like, well, Dusty Rhodes has done more for this industry than any of the buddy from the Samoan dynasty before the Rock.
Yep. I agree.
Anybody.
I agree.
He's done more than Rocky Johnson. He's done more than Peter Maivia. I love Yokozuna, but he did more.
Yep.
And the fact that half the talent that are on top right now were all understudies under Dusty.
Dusty's kids. Yep.
Paul Heyman, same thing. Dusty Rhodes guy. He had all these integral parts that he put in place years ago. He created Starrcade. Starrcade was created by Dusty Rhodes. War Games was created by Dusty Rhodes. All of this stuff that is still used in this industry today, which the mega shows, Starrcade was before WrestleMania, folks. Yep. WWE won't tell you that. They'd love to be like, we were the ones that created with the mega event.
Oh, that was Starrcade.
Yeah, it was 100%. Starrcade. The only thing that WWE did better than Starrcade is they went out and got Muhammad Ali, Liberace, Billy Martin, all these people to sell it because they were top celebrities at the time. So and of course Cyndi Lauper helped. All this, and they got MTV behind them instead of just the Superstation TBS.
Yep.
That was it. They had, but as far as the Super Show was concerned, Crockett was ahead of them at least by a year and a half.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and of course, WWE will tell you different. They'll be like, well, no. I know you want to write your own history. That's the way you guys. That's the way you guys are. You want to write your own history. Every time that they take down another promotion, they just sit there and they're like, "Well, we conquered another one." It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, you conquered another one, and they're gonna write that they never did anything. Like WCW never put us in a position. They were a horribly mismanaged company. It's like that almost put you out of business. All this stuff that they just rewrite. Like some of those Monday Night War DVDs, you're just sitting there, you're like, that didn't happen like that.
Yeah, I know.
That didn't happen like that. I know what happened. Common wrestling fans know what happened. But because they won the war, they get to write what they want.
Yep. Exactly. So I was just about to say it. You know, they can rewrite history however they want to at this point because they won it. But there was a time for, I think you said it last week, for about 2 years almost, a little bit less maybe, where we weren't too sure.
No.
We weren't. And I remember saying it last week that if you were a wrestling fan back then, you were switching back and forth on Monday night because you wanted to see as much as you could of both shows.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, there was no internet back then either, so you're like, I did it. I gotta know what happened.
There was no such thing as like being able to put one app on your computer or tablet and then have something else on your TV, which makes it so much easier now. You had to, unless you had two TVs like in the same room, which that was impossible back then. You were lucky to have 3 goddamn TVs in the house back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Let alone, you know, I remember getting a TV in my room, and my first TV was a black and white, like 12-inch, like it, but it was during that era. And I remember I got like a crappy cable box, setting it up, and I'm just like, because I had to, like, I absolutely had to, because everything was going till 10 or 11. I had to be in bed by a certain point, but I could leave the TV on or whatever. So I had to make sure that I was, because it was so important back then. I still remember the girls going into high school and they'd be talking about like Dawson's Creek, and I'd just be like, do you know who fucking joined the NWO last night? I don't need this shit. Like,
yeah, it was.
That was an every week occurrence. Like,
yeah, I remember my mother practically trying to rip me away from the TV when it got to that point, and I just, oh my god, I remember putting a TV in my room. Like probably like a year after, right? Like I think probably like first or second year of high school, and just like try to hide it from my parents so they didn't even know it was in the room. It's just, oh man. But I remember being
I remember being punished one time, and I don't know if my mom was home, but my dad had mentioned he's just like because I was baking popcorn or something like that. And it was like 8:30 at night. He's like, "Why are you punished? Like you're not supposed to have TV." And I just looked at him and I just said, "Look it." I said, "The NWO invasion is still like it was like within the first like 3 or 4 months." And I just looked at him and I just said, "What we can't know, what we don't know, can't hurt us." Okay. Like I just walked away because it's like nothing was going to pull me away from the TV back then. It was literally impossible.
Yeah.
And then, of course, 6 months later, he goes out against the legal cable box, which completely, and I can say that here because it's been over 20 years, statutes of limitations.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you right now, my old man did the exact same thing. That is how we watched some of those pay-per-views back then, my guy. So I remember that stuff. I remember that stuff.
Between 1997 and 2001, I didn't miss a fucking thing.
Yep.
Like it, every month it was like 3 pay-per-view, especially when ECW got involved, because then it was like 3 pay-per-views a month.
Yep.
Where you're just like, oh, even the shitty WCW ones in 2000 and like the second half of '99, it was still enjoyable to watch because it was just like this is big time stuff because you didn't know back then. We didn't know any better.
Oh man, I'm never gonna live that shit down.
Never.
No, no, you're right though. I remember watching some in probably as early as like 97, 98 with that black box, and that thing lasted a good long while, and I am forever grateful because I definitely have a lot of great memories, like watching WrestleMania 14 when Austin won the title for the first time against Shawn Michaels. And then going in to junior high the next day, where one of my buddies was like going on about how HBK was going to win for months at that point at WrestleMania. And nope, sorry, bud. Not only did he win in our home city, he lost to Steve Austin.
And to think if it wasn't for the Undertaker backstage with taped fists, it might have not happened.
Yeah, I know.
I remember when he got the boxes, he looked at me and he just said, I better not like the Spice Channel or Adam and Eve and all that stuff. I'm like, you don't fucking have to worry about that. I'm like, you really don't. I said, this here, I said, is enough. Like, if they gave me that rule, it was like, I'm going to stick to that rule because literally you just handed me a fucking golden ticket.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everything now is first print. I remember WrestleMania 14, I had confirmation class that night.
Oh, jeez.
So but I made it home in time for, I literally was like, what is the earliest I can leave? I looked at them, but I'm like, what is the earliest I can leave? They're like, well, it's going till 8. I'm like, do you understand what tonight is? So bad.
Oh, man, I can't say I blame you, dude.
I got home in time for Taker and Kane. Like, Pete Rose was just coming out when I got home. I'm like, oh, thank God I missed all the important stuff is still ahead.
Yep.
And that was the way that the night went. It was like everything that I was able to see that I wanted to was still available. And then I just went back and watched the tape the next day. Oh, and I remember selling off all the old tapes at one point when I knew the network was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, a lot of this stuff I could run it over to DVD. So all the VHSs I just got rid of in one shot at one point. The ECW original tapes, I made a lot of money on because it was all unedited. It had all the old music and all that stuff where that's hard to find now. You can't get that on the network because everything's dubbed over. Sandman doesn't come out to enter Sandman. Yep. He comes out to like some fucking shitty knockoff version because they don't want to pay rights fees. So luckily, thanks to the way that things have happened as far as data is concerned, but also being able to convert them over to disc and then convert them over to digital. You're able to have decent transfers now where you can save all that without having to have 600 tapes staring at you.
Well, I mean, I mentioned this on the pre-show. Like when I was looking for pictures for one of the slides coming up, I started on a random video or Google search really before even that, and just the quality was just like so bad. It's so bad.
I know.
And then I ended up going. I just you know what? I'll just go to Peacock on my computer and grab the screens that way. It's, all I need to do is just crop it and logo and do whatever later. And literally, just the quality is so much better than what we were used to watching it back then.
Yeah.
It's like night and day. Like, it looked like it could have passed for, like, you know, maybe 10 years old, maybe something like that, as opposed to, like, what, like, almost 30 years ago.
Oof.
It's wild. But you're right, it cuts down on the space, too, on the bookshelf, because I just remember all those video cases and DVD cases we both used to have, and just how wild that would be. Oh, I know, you do. I really don't.
Jesus. How many times we go to Movie Stop and have come out with fucking a dozen movies every week?
Or walk outside and yak because I made you drink too much?
Hey, look. Look. I knew. I'm glad this it's episode 3. Finally,
let's get it out of the way now.
Christ. That was the sobering moment, I guess you could say, because I think that was the last time I really had a night like that where I just completely, obliterated myself.
I'm surprised she's still friends with me after all that shit, man.
You didn't force it down my throat. I could have,
I mean, listen, like, when you play drinking games with me, you gotta come prepared. You gotta come prepared.
My liver's healed. I'm fine.
All right. So I guess I had this in order, but I'm going to mix up the order, actually. Since we're talking about the road to WrestleMania, one of the previous roads to WrestleMania was I guess, starting with In Your House back in the mid to late 90s, before all these pay-per-views or PLEs now became serialized. And one of the last In Your Houses was, ironically, on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1999 to be exact, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, In Your House. This was, I had to look all this stuff up because I remembered a good chunk of the show, but I couldn't remember a lot of it. But apparently, again, first of all, this was very, very late in terms of the In Your House. It was the very last one that I saw, period, in Memphis, Tennessee, at the Memphis Pyramid. So, for...
It's now a Bass Pro Shop, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I find that fascinating because I remember when this fucker opened. Like, it was, everybody was like, oh, this thing is going to revolutionize everything. The Grizzlies, I think, played there for a time.
Yep.
It always had fucking problems.
Yeah.
Always had issues where they had to build another arena anyways in the same city, which I think is it's either the FedEx Forum. Yeah, I think it's the FedEx Forum now.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, it's now a Bass Pro Shop. I remember it also held the Lewis Tyson fight. I think in 2002. So like it was a strange short history for that building.
It's funny in retrospect because I'm listening to this yesterday as I try to pull the slides and the pictures for everything to make this kind of jive. And hearing Michael Cole on commentary from 1999, he almost sounds the exact same.
He does.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
In that regard, because first of all, I was surprised just hearing him in general, but then the fact that, again, it was 1999, Michael Cole's on commentary at a PLE or pay-per-view, and he sounds pretty much the same. But the thing about this was that if we compare it to today and that PLE pay-per-view schedule, this is around the same time as Elimination Chamber would take place this year. It's Valentine's Day to 15, 10, depending days later. And, somebody's already won the Rumble. This is, at the time when there's only one world champion, not world heavyweight champion or WWE champion, undisputed champion. It's only one championship. And unfortunately, we really can't talk about that match other than saying it was Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Redacted.
Redacted.
And a cage match. But it's funny. As I go back and look, and I look at the matches before I even loaded up because I knew I wanted certain pictures. What I found hilarious was as soon as I saw the cage match, I remembered it immediately.
Same.
I remembered it. I burst out laughing. But I don't want to jump right to the end, so I'm just going to go through a couple that we're not going to spend too much time on. There was a dark match, obviously, and this was so again, like I could stop real quick. This was during the Sunday Night Heat period. For a lot of people that might not know what that was, it was like a third show on Sunday nights. If they had a pay-per-view PLE, whatever, that would still play, and then they kind of segue on the pay-per-view, wasn't PLE yet, to the regular event. So
before that, I remember it was the free, and I hate to cut you off.
Go ahead,
I just needed to. It was something I always remembered was the free for all days, and that was when it was on the preview channel. The TV Guide channel. Yeah, they used to air it on both. And that was right before the pay-per-view where I'm just like, come on, you're watching live,
Yeah.
I still remember too, and this is really a memory that just kicked in. So remember when Saturday night, WCW Saturday Night used to, of course they were on Saturday nights on TBS. Right. They had their first Hog Wild show in Sturgis.
Yeah.
So they were live from Sturgis between 6:05 and 8:05. So you were actually able to see the first 5 minutes of the pay-per-view where they actually had to be like, and the people that are watching on TBS, be sure to order now. Like that was still in an era of like where pre-shows could sometimes were the lead in to pay-per-views. Or Clash of the Champions or specials, whenever that was back then. But yeah, this was the early stages. I think I forgot when they started doing Heat. Was it either this year or like 98? It might have been 98.
You know what? I got Wiki open right now because I'm looking at the card. So let me just check real quick. 98. So it was the year before.
Okay.
So it was funny because I was about to ask, but it started 98 to 2000. It was on USA. 2000 to 2003 was on MTV. 2003 to 2005 it was on TNN/Spike TV, and then 05 to 08 it was on Webcast.
Right.
So I remember them distinctly on MTV, and that would have been. I would have been a junior in high school at that point. You would have been a senior.
That was during the Viacom deal year. Yeah, that was. But there was distinctly, I remember the Heat shows when they were on TV, and then I remember the one where they had it from the Manhattan Center.
Oh God, yeah.
At Hammerstein.
Yep.
Because it was right before ECW One Night Stand where they had to bleep everything for like an hour because everybody was just chanting the F word. Yep. And I was just like, holy shit, I love it.
Yeah, man. It was a funny time. It really was. Oh, man. But this, back to this. It was interesting. So I didn't even know they had a dark match prior, which, it makes sense considering, if you're there for that long, especially because you're there for not only the pay-per-view, but for Heat, you're going to do the dark match early. So apparently the dark match was Too Cool, Brian Christopher, and Scotty 2 Hottie against the Hardy Boys. Apparently that was your dark match. Moving into Heat was Viscera.
And now they're wrestling on Rampage, so not much has changed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for Too Cool, a lot has changed, but for the Hardy Boys, yeah, we'll talk about that later, I feel like. So on Heat, first match was Viscera with Midian defeats Test with the Big Boss Man. Oh, okay. Apparently by DQ. And then the other Heat match was Badass Billy Gunn with Triple H and X-Pac against Tiger Ali Singh.
Oh, God.
In a 40-second match to no contest. I honestly, I didn't find the Heat episode for this. I wasn't going to look it up. But I only barely remember Tiger Ali Singh. And literally every time I saw him back then and just thinking about it now, all I legit remember is just saying Tiger uppercut every time I saw him. Just always say it. It was whatever, man. So going into the pay-per-view itself, I had forgotten completely about this match. It's the match with the picture in the top left of the slide. Goldust versus the Blue Meanie, who was playing as Blue Dust at this time. This was a 3-minute match of garbage. Just unadulterated garbage. Obviously, just garbage. Goldust defeats Blue Dust. Just whatever. The next match was about 10 minutes, just shy of 10 minutes anyways. Hardcore Holly, Bob Holly, defeating Al Snow with head. It has to clarify with head. In a hardcore match for the vacated Hardcore Championship. So, for those that don't really know what that is,
finish.
It
Very
was.
creative.
They went in the ring, out of the ring, in the back, everywhere, man. This was a good match. I remember this very distinctly because of how outlandish they actually took it. Those that are like, what the F is the Hardcore Championship? It's basically, if you watch AEW, it's the F the World Championship.
Correct.
Hardcore Championship is anything goes. It started to become like the 24/7 title almost, where
Yes.
That was the start of the 24/7 title. Really, was the Hardcore Championship. Anything goes, and the championship at that point looked like just a mix mash of like all these other championships just thrown together into one belt. Looked ridiculous. This was violence, unadulterated. You know Al Snow, you kind of figured that out anyways, though. Good match, not a bad card overall so far. Obviously, if you exclude Goldust and Blue Dust. Next match was 6 minutes. Big Boss Man defeating Midian. I mean, this was so.
I'll put butts in the seats.
I guess I should clarify. This was our corporate ministry Big Boss Man wearing all black,
God.
not the Big Boss Man from the early to mid '90s.
It was corporate Big Boss Man. They weren't
was.
the corporate true ministry yet.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Actually, so you're right. I forgot about that completely because at the end, the ministry comes out and they all attack Big Boss Man. So you're right.
This,
I did
of course,
forget that.
sets up Mania 15, that famous Hell in a Cell match between him and Taker.
Correct. Which no comments on that. Yeah, exactly. All right. So the next match was a tag team match for the WWF Tag Team Championships. The team of, being accompanied to the ring by Deborah. The team of Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart, who are the champions, against D'Lo Brown and Sexual Chocolate Mark Henry with Ivory. So I feel like the best part of this match was
Ivory? I mean, what?
I mean Ivory ripping the clothes off Deborah after the match was over. Yeah. I listen, like the match had nothing really to it, a couple of good spots.
I always had a crush on Ivory. I got to be
I
quite
had a
honest.
crush on Deborah, and I feel like a lot of people did.
A lot of people had a crush on Deborah, and I get why.
Yeah.
I completely understand why. But I always thought Ivory was pretty cute.
Ivory was a badass at that point, especially.
Yeah.
You know, like the Widow's Peak and all that. She could actually hit it and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
pretty badass. Yeah, so Jeff Jarrett Owen win after the match. There's some extracurricular with Ivory and Deborah, and looked like Mark Henry was hurt, but I have no idea because I didn't really follow up and finding out because I don't care.
Yeah. Was he hurt?
I don't remember. He looked pretty hurt, but I was just like, I'm just looking for pictures right now. I want to go to bed. The next match for the Intercontinental title, Val Venus with Ryan Shamrock.
Fucking shit.
Yep. Who dated Edge, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's
Were they married?
that's Val Venus' sister.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yeah, real life. This is non-kayfabe.
Not kayfabe.
It was Val Venus' sister that married Edge. Yeah,
we all know how that worked out. Anyway, Val
Matt
Venus.
Hardy.
Yeah. Yes, he does, and I feel like the rest of the WWE universe at this point knows what happened if they follow their WWE history. Val Venus against Ken Shamrock for the Intercontinental title. Val Venus wins. Apparently, Billy Gunn was a special guest referee, so whatever match he had on Heat with Tiger Ali Singh didn't seem to really do much. The next match, which you could argue this card had 3 main events, and this was one of them. It was the Corporation, which I'll get to in a second, against DX, which was Triple H and X-Pac. This match was very unique as the Corporation team was Kane and the first woman to really wrestle a man in China. So that's actually on the screen to the far left. I have X-Pac doing a Bronco Buster to China. Listen, it was so funny watching this match last night because
Foreshadowing.
Yeah,
foreshadowing.
It looked like a domestic disturbance watching this match, and I feel bad saying that and laughing about it, but literally when Triple H finally gets his hand, fist, whatever on China, she just goes flying, and I couldn't help but just laugh. And like, you know, there's this build up to the match. Obviously, China and Kane are supposed to be the kayfabe bad guys in the match, the heels of the match, and it's just so funny to me watching this match. And of course, Shane is on commentary for this match too.
Oh God!
Get him, China! Get him!
Get him, China!
Yeah, get him, China! And then I forget who it was, X-Pac or Triple H, I forget who it was, just go over and slap the taste out of Shane's mouth.
Oh God! You know, he was the absolute worst.
He was.
He was the absolute worst back then, but in a lovable way. Like I still remember. Do you remember the WrestleMania Raging Climax party?
Oh my God!
Yeah. Shane McMahon was absolutely fucking incredible that night. Like because he was just completely. He looked completely wired. Like everything he was doing, he was just like over the top reacting to it. He was priceless. He was probably the best. At this point, early '99, Shane McMahon was fucking fantastic as a character. Unbelievable.
I would argue he was always a good character, but you wanted to just punch him in the face.
Of course.
If it was a face, it's like, dude, I just want to punch you right now. So bad. So bad.
I liked him in 06 though, when he was like, he didn't do anything. He was just like Vince's guy, or excuse me, Redacted. He was Redacted's kind of like errand boy, and just going around. It's just they're in the church. He's just standing there.
Oh my God! Yeah. I remember, I don't want to say the invasion arc per se, but when they kayfabe bought WCW, we all know it's not kayfabe,
yes.
but you know when they did it kayfabe, Shane comes out as like the owner of WCW and stuff, and I'm just like, dude, this isn't even believable no matter how you slice it. But the funniest Shane thing to me was honestly last year.
Oh God.
I couldn't, dude. I'm in the hotel room just cracking up.
I think I shared that clip maybe 600 times in like a week period.
Oh,
like every
God.
time there was a
I don't even
lull,
think you made it a
like,
week, Dan. I think you did it in like 2 days. It was hilarious.
Said.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And no one ever was like, stop saying that because everybody was laugh reacting to it still. But that was hysterical. Just him blowing his quad in the middle of that. It's like,
Dude does a leapfrog and then just immediately blows both quads.
Like, his quad is gone. Oh God.
I think it runs in the family. I think I said something like that night too. even it happens to the son-in-law too. I mean, God. So, anyways, yeah. Corporation lost that match.
Must not skip leg day. Must not skip leg day.
Yeah, seriously. Corporation loses to DX in about 15 minutes. This next one, I had to scroll up a little bit earlier. This is a rematch technically from Halftime Heat, and it's Mankind versus The Rock, last man standing match for the WWE Championship. Earl Hebner is the referee. You can see it in the middle of the screen. You can't because I'm not sharing it with you, but Hebner's on like 9 of that picture. And he basically it's double, it's a draw, essentially. I was going to say double knockout, but, it's a draw. Both men do not rise to the count of 10. This being after Halftime Heat, I thought was pretty funny. So Halftime Heat was obviously, for those that aren't aware of it, was basically the year that they had an empty arena match between The Rock and Mankind during Super Bowl halftime.
Yes.
Which I feel like not a lot of people actually watched, but I watched.
Well, they might have. Oh, you mean you think they may have watched? I think they watched Halftime Heat because I think that was the year the Broncos faced the Falcons, which was a one-sided game. So I think that.
But a lot of people watch the halftime shows, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I forget.
I gotta look it up
halftime
though.
show that year.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. 1999 Super Bowl. Let's see.
So it'd be Super Bowl 33, I believe.
You're right. XXXIII. Denver Broncos 14-2 record, 34 points in the Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons, also 14-2, only scored 19 points. Where is the halftime show? Oh yeah, never mind. People watched it. Do you want to know the halftime show, Dan?
Who was the halftime show?
Gloria Estefan, Stevie Wonder, Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. Yep. Can't see your mouth, but I can definitely see that smile regardless. Yeah, that was it.
Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. Are you fucking kidding me?
I wish I was.
Gloria Estefan, I understand. Stevie Wonder, I understand. Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. Why?
I mean, dude, I'm still trying to figure out why WWE still has that one dude coming around like all the time now. I forget his name, Jelly Bean or something like that, man.
Oh, he was in the fucking crowd at Royal Rumble. Everybody was reacting to him.
Yeah.
Like in the audience, and I was just like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, exactly. That was my reaction too, trust me. I was like, what is going on right now?
I'm in the building, and they're just like, hey, it's Jelly Bean. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, who? Like, who are you? I have no idea who you are, and I don't really care to know at this point.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah. I could not care less. But yeah, so that was, depending on how you're scoring this pay-per-view, the second of 3 main events. And the last one, which had a stipulation, was a cage match number 1, but it also had the stipulation that if Steve Austin won, he would be the number 1 contender for the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 15. And it was Steve Austin versus Redacted.
Redacted.
So just clarifying real quick If we say redacted, we're talking about Vince McMahon.
Yes.
Which we could say his name because it's Mr. McMahon, the character, really,
yes.
not
it's
Vince.
Yes.
But I don't know. Redacted is obviously funnier anyway, so I'm gonna go with redacted.
I believe it is. I love using redacted at this point is just hilarious, but also I think poignant.
I could not agree more. Trust me.
So it's like.
So this match was just I don't know. I remember this match distinctly because and I think I said this on the pre-show if not already saying it on the show at this point anyways.
Spot in that match almost.
I not only that, but I had forgotten about this pay-per-view in general, right? I was like, I know they had a Valentine's Day show at one point. I forget what it was. I don't remember the year, whatever. And then I looked it up before we did the show because obviously we're also going to do bad WWE love stories. And I said, all right, there has to be something to this that we can talk about. I saw the last main event, third main event, true main event, whatever you want to say. Like it doesn't matter. And I was like, oh my God, I remember that match. And all I read was steel cage match. And I knew it immediately.
Yep.
And I remember them playing it on the Raw after this too. Constantly replaying that spot. So this was a good match for what it was, right?
Yes.
Like, McMahon's gonna give you something. The character, redacted, I apologize. I'm already forgetting myself here. But, it was a good match for what it was. And I feel like everybody knew Austin was going to be in event Mania that year anyways.
Without question.
It was what it was. You had Mankind and The Rock, who'd been doing their thing for a few months at this point. They needed to get away from it. This was that perfect segue, right? And because, let's be real, as much as he put the belt on Mick Foley, he didn't want to main event at WrestleMania. Let's be realistic for a second. So, at some point, Paul White, who becomes the Big Show, comes out, picks up Austin, and I'll ask you now before we go into what actually happened during that spot, but did you see that coming? Because I kind of did.
What,
how it happened with, Austin winning the match, basically?
Yeah, it definitely was something of, it reeked of just like a billionaire plan that he thinks he's got everything figured out, and the big giant man throws him into cage wall breaks, and then he just hangs on and then drops to the floor, and he's just like, oh shit, like he's looking up at the referee after it, and he's just like, I can't believe I just fucking won that, like he's like, I completely lucked out. So I was actually I had just admitted earlier that we both kind of had access to hot boxes at that time. I was actually in Texas during this for February vacation that week. So I had to wait like an entire week before I could watch it. But I remember my brother was good enough to be like, didn't give me any details. I talked to him when that week, and I'm just like, did you get the tape? He's like, of course. And it worked out because I had saved him a few months earlier because he was off. He was away during the Goldberg Kevin Nash match. And he's just like, just tape it. I don't want to know what happened. And then when he got back, I'm just like, here's the tape. He's like, am I going to be happy? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, fuck. Like, he just came back to me like a couple days later. He's just like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, no, that's how they did it. He's the taser. So for this show, I'm like, okay. Did Vince bleed? He's like, yes. I'm like, yep. Okay. All I need to know. But I watched Raw the next night. Like, so I'm in Texas. Don't know what happened in the pay-per-view because there's no like instant results and all that stuff. But I watched Raw the next night. So when I heard the Big Show, like when I saw where Paul White come out, I'm just like, hey, that's like immediately. I'm just like, hey, that's the Giant.
Exactly.
Like that's not Paul White.
Yeah.
Because he was literally on WCW TV like 2 or 3 months earlier.
Yep.
And all of a sudden now, you know, he's working in WWE. He's working with Vince. He's aligned himself. And of course, it's like, holy shit. Like, he was... The Paul White signing was pretty significant because that was a young guy that WWE hired, plucked away from them, that was looking to get better opportunities because everybody that was ahead of him were older. So this was the debut of someone that was supposed to be a new young talent, which, you know, when he signed in 99, he was with that company for another 22 years.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, and before he ended up going to AEW, but, you know, WWE got him at his best, I believe.
I think so, because the thing with WWE was I feel like they rounded him out, really.
They did,
yes.
yes.
With WCW, he didn't have to do anything. Like, he just had to be there. That was really it. And when WWE got him, I feel like he was still, despite having the experience, still very green.
Yes.
And I felt like a lot of the time it did show, especially the first year or two. And then he got better. He really did. And like you said, he was there for 20-something years at that point when he left. So obviously he did get better. And he did have some very good feuds and funny ones like Brock, obviously. But, you know, it just... And Cena, too, honestly. He had good feuds with Cena as well. And he did with everybody. You know, seeing him back then, it's almost comical. And how that match ended... Right. Throwing Steve Austin out so Steve Austin could hit the ground first. It's somewhat comical. It's a plot device, but it worked, right? Like, Steve Austin, the biggest guys you'd seen at that point were Undertaker and Kane, really. Right. To have the 500-pounder come in and throw him through the cage really was not something you were going to see anywhere else at that point. But the look on both him and Redacted's faces after the match when Austin won, I thought were just so priceless. He looks like he's going to cry, first of all. Big Show looks like he's about to, like, cry. And I'm surprised he was able to have that trembling face for as long as he did at the end of the show. Because that lasted a good couple of minutes. And he has that trembling mad face the entire time. And I'm like, damn, that's commitment, man. Like, how are you doing that? And then McMahon's face, I'm sorry, Redacted again, Jesus. Redacted's face is just like, I want to kill him. How did it happen? I want to kill him. Like, he just makes some shock and anger just everywhere. But it wasn't a bad show. If you were going to end the whole in your house motif, it wasn't a bad show to end it on.
No, it really wasn't. And it's funny because I had made an article earlier today where I talked about, and it kind of brought up some stuff because I knew we were going to be talking about the show, and it brought up memories of 1999 and WWF and just how terrible their pay-per-views were that year. It was just a bad pay-per-view year. And it was sandwiched in between 98 and 2000, which had excellent pay-per-views. This is one of the better ones of the year. The main event, you can argue, because of the fact that Redacted was so limited, it wasn't that great, but I don't think you needed really to have a 5-star classic. It was about the story. It was about how's Vince going to try to screw over Austin, and how bad is Austin going to just kick the shit out of Vince. Because everything at that point they needed to have this match. They needed to kind of have this like one-on-one mano-a-mano stuff because they never really got it. They teased it the previous April. Never happened. It got smozzed out by Dude Love. They had their
good way of putting that one.
Yeah. still one of my favorite Austin title defenses was Over the Edge '98.
Yep.
And it was him. It was him and Dude Love, and it was McMahon as the referee. And all McMahon did was fuck with him the entire match.
Yep.
It was like, oh, they're outside. Oh, it's a no count out match. No count outs. Falls count it. Like they were just changing the rules in the middle of it. And JR was so great on it because he's just like, since when? Since when? Like all this.
Slapper knocker, slapper knocker.
So and then Dude Love hits Vince with the chair. And then Austin drags Vince over. One,
throws his hands down.
2, 3.
I love that.
But they needed to have this match. They tussled at the Royal Rumble, but it wasn't, which, sorry, you weren't going to be able to have people really satisfied with that finish because I remember that Rumble when Vince won being so fucking pissed off.
Yeah, me too.
I'm 15 years old and I'm just like, this is absolute bullshit.
Yeah, it was awful.
And then, because it's like, you're expecting now Vince is going to be the main event, but you knew somehow Austin was going to be in there.
Yeah.
Right? You knew. It wasn't like with this Cody Rock situation where you're sitting there, you're just like, well, Rock's going to fucking take it from him. With McMahon, you knew it wasn't going to be for long. And this match, this pay-per-view, this main event is iconic. Like, it is one of the biggest matches in the history of the Attitude Era. Maybe in the history of the company, to be quite honest, just because of the fact it was sold on Vince McMahon, redacted. But as for this story,
I know.
For this story, it has to be with Vince. Because I remember going through all the pay-per-view posters and all the ones that he was on, and I'm just like, so are they going to just start taking him out now? Like, but you can get away with it because it's like, oh, he was a character. Like, he wasn't the executive.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though the character and the executive were one and the same. Let's just face it. As time has gone on, folks, one and the same. Here's my on-screen character, and here's me as the badass billionaire. Yeah, it's just a sandwich together.
It's not to like segue or go on a tangent here, I guess, but it's funny looking at when Hogan had the mask and was doing the Miss America bit, and Vince had the lie detector on him.
I am not a pervert.
I am not a pervert.
Yeah.
And it's funny looking back at that now because, man, that lie detector obviously was kayfabe, but oh my god, was it accurate. The best part of this pay-per-view is obviously, I feel like, what happens after, because obviously this was a great pay-per-view, number one. Smack the mic. The thing is, next month it is 15 and you get an awesome main event with The Rock for the title. And really, those two have been fighting for years over the Intercontinental title and other titles.
Their Backlash match was actually better.
It was better, I agree. But this still was a great match.
No, without question, but their Backlash match was better.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. But, all in all, I think 15, and we've talked about this in the past, 15 is a great pay-per-view in the first place anyways. This being the lead up to that is great too.
I disagree just because of the fact that I felt like 15 was more of an extended episode of Monday Night Raw than anything. Other than the main event, it's a C show. Like,
I don't think it's a C show. I think it's a high to mid B, maybe. I do agree that some of it was stupid. I'm not going to sit here and disagree with that. But there were other parts that were pretty good. Like having a... Oh, man, who was it? I gotta look for it now.
It was weird because we look at this month, right? And I think it was Billy Gunn was involved in the Intercontinental Championship feud. And then you go into WrestleMania, and the Road Dogg, I think, was coming into it or won the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania.
Yep.
And then Billy Gunn is fighting for the Hardcore Championship, and it's just like, but he was in the Intercontinental mix, and then it happened. Like, there was some kind of like odd scratching my head moments of like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why is Road Dogg in the Intercontinental mix when Billy Gunn was in there like a month ago? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it is weird. The more I look at the card, like, I think you're right. The main event is something special, but the rest of it, it's kind of hit or miss.
The main event was something special. They would have better matches, obviously. Like the Backlash match, I thought was better.
Right.
Their matchup at the 17 match blows it out of the fucking water.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
The 17 match, you can make an argument, is also one of the greatest main events in company history. Just because, and that was a concept that people, because 90 with the Ultimate Challenge, right?
Yeah.
It didn't draw as much as the Mega Powers Explode the year before.
Right.
So Vince had already kind of redacted, had already soured to the idea of a babyface versus babyface main event for WrestleMania. But X7 was completely different because it was, yeah, they're both baby faces, but literally they're 1A and 1B. It's no longer like, it wasn't like with Warrior where you're trying to raise him up to be Hogan's level. These guys are both at the same level. So you have to have the match. You have to have them, the two best guys in the company, challenging for the championship, which you got a taste of it in 15. And 15 is, the main event is excellent.
Right.
But there are rematches subsequently.
Oh yeah.
The one a month later, and then the one 2 years later.
Yep.
Or blow everything away.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's like night and day. Like 15 was good. Let's be real. Like the main event was good. But if you compare it to 17 or even 19, no shot.
Right.
Just zero shot. But the funny thing about it is that they had fought before, right? Like they've fought in other capacities before. I think they fought over the Intercontinental Championship before. Austin had won the world title, and it wasn't anything really new. But they just worked so well together at that point that it just makes sense.
I remember the DX pay-per-view they actually did in Springfield, Mass, where it was Rock and Austin drove the pickup truck down ringside. It's just, he completely destroyed the Nation of Domination with the pickup truck. Beats Rock. Vince gets pissed because, of course, it's like you drove a pickup down to the ring and then you kicked everybody's ass with it. So he's just like, well, screw it then. Strip me the title. Rock gets the title. And then Austin gets it back from him and then throws it in the lake. Like, he threw it off a bridge. A famous promo. And then then the Royal Rumble of 98, the final two participants were The Rock and Steve Austin. Austin eliminated him. And you kind of... I don't think I would... I never thought, though, because usually the last 2 or 3 or 4 guys in a Royal Rumble sometimes, they're usually guys that are going to either intersect each other at some certain point.
Yep.
Or that's kind of where the future of the main event scene is going to be, where people
Correct.
are like,
yeah,
okay. In 98, I didn't know if I knew Austin was going to be on the top, but The Rock, I was still kind of on the fence about. I knew he had gotten better.
Yep.
He had gotten a lot better, because if you asked me that a year before, I would have been like, you're out of your fucking mind. But January 98, I was still on the fence about. By WrestleMania 14, though, I had made the decision, yeah, he's ready. Like, that was the night where he was having the backstage interview with Jennifer Flowers, which still makes me laugh to this day. And he that was when you finally started to see like this character finally come to pass of The Rock. You know, he's referring to himself in the third person, all this stuff, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, he's ready. And so it took me a couple of months. It still took me like 2 months before I was like, yeah, he's a full-fledged main event talent. Because it could have went touch and go in January. Like the end of '97, I was still on the fence, and I don't think I was the only person either, because you had just mentioned too that you were like still kind of like, I don't know how this is going to go for him.
I didn't, because the thing was, like, especially early on when he was the Intercontinental Champion, I didn't know. Like, I had the inkling, but I just feel that I don't want to say he was protected, but he kind of was, right? Like, he had the nation around him,
Yes.
so he didn't need to be the focal point. And then as he took more and more, I guess, spotlight away from Farouk and having him in other feuds like the Austin one for the Intercontinental title, it made sense. And Austin at this point had been a veteran for a while. Rock was still kind of trying to find his niche. And I think finally, by the time he kind of started to intersect with Austin after, is when I was just like, okay, now you know. And especially after that movie, I think it was The Rundown, if I'm not mistaken, the first one, not The Mummy or The Scorpion King or whatever garbage that was, but The Rundown. And when he came back as like Hollywood Rock,
oh yeah,
you just knew at that point, like, okay, this dude is going to be something here too. And that's really what kind of sold it for me. He was still good before the Hollywood Rock thing. Don't get me wrong, but after he was that much better.
I think it was what sold it for me was the Jennifer Flowers stuff, and then everything that he kind of did when he was the Intercontinental Champion. I still remember. I still remember though there were certain points I'm just like, I don't know, like if this, you kind of had like, but then I think he won the Deadly Games tournament, and I was pretty much sold at that point. I'm just like, he's too good, like he's just got it, because that was when he figured everything out too. He was like, oh, the corporate elbow, the elbow to me is just hilarious. It's so dumb.
It still is,
but it's hilarious. And just when he would get on commentary, like in the middle of the match, and just, oh God, just so many things where you're just like, yeah.
I remember
he's perfect.
One of the things that he did in one of the matches you had with Stone Cold on TV was grabbing the camera, talking into it, and then smacking Austin with it. And that was really another selling for me, like, okay, if this dude is going to grab the camera, insult Steve Austin and hit him, and then hit him with the camera, it was favorite. Like so crazy to me to see that. Nobody had ever done something like that before, really.
It was the Backlash match. He had the camera, and at one point, he's just like, it's a point of view shot, and he's just talking trash to Austin.
Yep.
And then he just takes the camera, and he's just like, and all the millions of the Rocks.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, he pans over to Austin.
And then Austin's right
Austin with the double fingers. And he's like, oh, shit.
Yep.
Sutter.
It was so great. They really did have great chemistry in their matches, man. But that one, I remember that very vividly and just saying, oh my God, this dude has it. Like, you knew Austin did, but the fact that The Rock was doing stuff like that was just hilarious.
I don't think you can have, and I understand people that are like, oh, one more match between those two would be great. They're both in a position. Rock is going to need someone to carry him, and so is Steve. Which is why Steve went up against Kevin Owens, because he knew Kevin Owens is going to be able to do whatever he wants.
I mean, that too, but I would also say that that's why they had the street fight versus a regular match.
That's true. But And really, they could have done anything, and that people still would have been nuts for it. But that match was so good. Like, that match was so much better than it should be on paper. Because it's like, he hasn't imagined all his 20 years. Oh, shit, we're going to figure this out. When I saw him take a suplex on the floor, I was just like, yep, he doesn't care. He's fine.
Yep. I was like, oh, we're doing this.
Oh, we're doing this then. And it was just like, it was so great. And everybody was, and haven't heard a bad word about that match ever, where people were just like pissed off, like, oh, it lived up to the hype. Like, it definitely did. I don't know if that could happen again with The Rock, with Austin. I like the idea of them both being enforcers.
Yeah, me too.
For the main event. If he is going to do another match, it's probably going to be Punk, and it's probably going to be next year.
I don't know. I agree with Punk because they've had their run-ins in the past. They're also pretty friendly, from what I've understood, and probably would love working with each other too. Let's be real.
Yes,
but I don't know. I feel like the window's closing, and if he doesn't do it this year, I don't know how willing he might be next year. Having said that, though, I mean, the dude's still able to go. He looked better than The Rock did last year, or 2 years ago, excuse me, than The Rock did slapping Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. And I just think that, the problem is Punk going to come back from his injury? You know, there's just so many, I think, angles. Yeah. But it's an easy storyline for CM Punk to finally get his road to WrestleMania, and he has to call out Steve Austin.
Yeah.
So I think Austin and Punk, you can probably pencil in for next year. I'm just talking about pencil. I'm not saying it's going to be written in pen, but I'm saying that you can at least pencil that in as an idea of where I think it's going to go. Unless they finally just do, because the Drew thing with Punk is interesting because Drew still hasn't signed a contract.
Yeah. Same
thing with Seth. So you don't know when they come back, when CM Punk comes back, if those guys are going to be even in the company still. Not saying storyline wise, but at the same time, you have another company that's willing to drop a lot of money and just continue to drop a lot of money. So bringing in Seth or Drew, especially the fact that Drew ruined WrestleMania plans for CM Punk. If Drew McIntyre goes to AEW, the fans would automatically embrace him just because the fact that he screwed CM Punk out of going to WrestleMania. The fan base will be like, he's automatically our favorite babyface because he really fucked Punk up not being able to main event WrestleMania. He would go and automatically be a top hero. Like, he could go. Tony Khan could go out and make one of his special announcements, bring out Drew, and Drew can look at him and he says, "I did it for you, Tony." And then Tony can give him a giant hug. You know, that could be his debut in AEW.
Anyway, I think I just threw up a little bit in my mouth from that. Wow, I have no words for you. Show's canceled. Sorry, everybody. Oh my god. Anyway, I have no response to that. I'm in utter shock that you have actually said the words that you've said tonight.
People say I can't book AEW. Watch that happen verbatim.
Well, you know what? That's actually a good segue, because you might be able to actually book some better WWE love stories than WWE.
Oh my God. I remember what I said. I'm like, well, it's Valentine's Day, so we better do something.
We should have just stuck with the massacre and left it alone.
No shit. And so now we have to relive. Now we're just putting ourselves through more bullshit because we got to be like, well, let's talk about this. Oh,
I have
fuck,
plausible
why?
deniability for this because I only put the slides together. You're the one that decided the content, sir.
Look, all right. Okay. What we always need to be able to look back on stuff that is terrible. And plus, when people talk negatively about wrestling, anything like history wise, it seems to do better content wise. Like people like hearing stuff about crappy wrestling stuff instead of the good stuff. They want to hear about like the botches. They want to hear about the stuff that was terrible more than they do about the stuff that was great. That's the thing about wrestling. It's just like people really remember the really great or the really shitty. And if it's in between, it's forgettable. No one cares. But except people like me, because I remember.
I was gonna say, we're talking to wrestling fans. I don't know.
Well, some of them might remember some of these. Then some of them might just be like, "Oh my god, they're going."
I mean, listen. Again, so last time we did the show, just like let's clarify this for a second. I sent you the slides in advance, anyways. We sign off on them both together because that's what we do as partnership.
Yes.
Last time I shared my screen and then Zoom, how we record ourselves and put it on the camera and everything, just decides to like give me the big middle finger like Steve Austin, and then that's it. So I get frustrated. So right now you can't see the slide. I don't know if you have it up on your end, but just the first one, a lot of people are probably not going to remember, especially under the age of 30, with Mae Young and Sexual Chocolate.
Oh,
Mark
God.
Henry.
Oh.
This is just grotesque.
It's
I don't have any other word for it.
fucking terrible.
Those are words for it too, I suppose, but I'm just going to go with grotesque.
It's the drizzling shits, I guess you could say, as far as if we're using wrestling terminology. The drizzling, like, Mae Young is an absolute trooper. Tough woman. Some of those goddamn bumps that she took in, like, the early 2000s, late 90s. How is she still able to walk after some of them? Like when she took that power bomb off the stage from Bubba Ray Dudley, I'm like, she's a fucking grandmother. Like, you could break a hip doing that. Nope. I'm just gonna take this goddamn Bubba bomb right off the fucking stage through a table. I'm like, holy shit.
Hey, listen, they were over in ECW, but that put them over in WWE.
I know, that really set them apart from every other team.
It really did. And then they did it to like every other woman on the roster at that point, but you know.
When Kurt Angle gives her the angle slam and then starts posing right afterwards. It's priceless. Like, he just won the gold medal again.
I don't know what I was watching, but I saw it the other day, and I was just cracking up. I was just like, man,
it's so
Mae
great.
took probably more bumps as a retiree than she did her entire career.
So, you know what? And that's why it's like I kind of hold her in a different category of just like, yeah, she's a trendsetter. Like anybody that takes like power bombs through tables, I kind of give her respect and her due. Yeah.
I love that during that whole thing with the Dudleys, you see her, to the trained eye, I guess I should say it that way. You see her reach back and grab Bubba's hand and basically say, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I always love that about Mae, and I love that about that whole thing because even Bubba admits, like, she got us over. Like, he still admits it to this day. And it's just so crazy to watch that Mae Young, the retiree, not an active wrestler anymore. When I say retiree, like, see the picture. She's old. She's old in that picture, man. And this picture was before that, actually. And it's just crazy to think that she's taking bumps like that at her age. It's wild. I love Mae Young, man. Just for stuff like that alone.
Yeah, it's just you gotta love her. Like it's just she should be knitting a sweater for like her grandson or something, and she's, just taking bumps. No like a champion, like nobody else would, and no other woman at that point would dare someone doing some of the stuff that she was doing. And she's just in this advanced age where it's like you literally could break a hip and it's all over, Johnny.
Yeah.
Like there are some people that age, if they break their hip, ooh, that's it. They're gone.
Dude, not even that. But I mean, Bubba's giving her a freaking power arm through her table. Like,
Yep.
who's to say she doesn't have, like, a spinal injury or something like that, too?
And she just kept going.
Yeah.
She's just like, oh, yeah, do what you want. It's like, oh, shit. And
But, the thing about this storyline, though, is, yeah. Mae Young and, Sexual Chocolate, Mark Henry, who is wearing his Sexual Chocolate singlet in the picture, ironically enough, are having a baby. Congratulations, because you gave birth to a hand. It's one of the worst written love stories in WWE history, and there's a lot of them. But giving birth to a hand, yes, that happened. Kayfabe.
Fuck. Like, God.
I remember asking, because
I think Briscoe was throwing up, and it was just like, yeah, I know, Jerry. That's how I feel too.
man, I remember asking you before we decided, what the slide should really be, and how I pulled the pictures as we talked about it beforehand, depending, right? You trust my judgment on a lot of them. This one was one I needed the extra call, and I said, all right, so who had bad ones, right? And I don't even remember if you said this one or if I did. I think we were definitely on the same wavelength with it, though, because, to those that are new to the show or watching it for the first time or whatever, obviously we're 3 episodes in anyways, but I took a break from wrestling for a long time. Like, yep. I remember the Kane and Lita one somewhat.
Ugh.
This one, though, was one that I definitely remember because it was happening around the time that I was watching it. And just... ugh. And I remember the hand, I remember watching it live and just going, what the fuck did I just watch? And it was just... I really had to take a step back and go, wait a minute. She hasn't hit menopause yet? I love May, man, but holy shit. I don't think anybody's having anything, let alone a hand at that age.
We're all taking like health classes at that point. And we're hearing about all this shit. And all of a sudden there's just like, so women at an advanced stage, they start going through a process of menopause. It's just like, yeah, Mae Young's pregnant. Like, can you explain how that's happening? And they're just like, well, obviously that's a wrestling storyline. But what if it isn't? Like, we're all asking those questions. It's completely absurd.
It
was just completely fucking absurd. You're sitting there and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how is that even possible?
It's so bad. Yeah. Granted, like, you don't think about it in that moment, right? Especially for this, because you're just like, what the fuck are they gonna do? Like, that's the whole thing. Like, this is gonna be something stupid.
How are they gonna get out of this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was like, I didn't include this one because I don't even really count it as a romance per se, even though you could have. Choppy pee-pee. Like, how did they get out of that? And then the next week on Raw, I had a little shrinkage. Like, what the hell? What the hell? And this was one of them where it was literally the same thing. Like, how did they get out of this? And then it's just like a hand. Like, what? Like, I don't know who the writer was at that point, but you just gotta be like, dude, what did you just write? Like, what is that?
I think Russo was already gone by that point.
Yeah, it was not Russo.
Yeah,
it was not
so
Russo.
It wasn't Russo. So the only one, I mean, probably Vince or like Pritchard. I can see Bruce Pritchard coming up with this. Oh, what do we do a hand? Bruce. Anybody who did come up with it, they should have been fucking instantly fired.
Yeah?
Like, they should just... Yeah.
How about she just breath to my hand?
Get out.
What the hell?
What?
Oh, my goodness.
And that was... oh, God. I'll tell you one that happened that I completely forgot about until because I don't know how much else I could give on this hand thing. I don't know what else could be said. And one that I remembered, because in 1995 I dipped out at certain points.
Oh, I don't blame you.
95 was just a really hard year to be a wrestling fan. Not just the WWF, but the WCW was bad as well. But WWE had a storyline with Harvey Wippleman.
Oh my God.
And Bertha Faye.
I completely forgot that existed until you just said it.
Like, let me preface this, by the way, folks, right? Okay. When it comes to, and I'm not body shaming people. People cannot accuse me of being body shaming whatsoever. They cannot. If you know me personally, you know my track record. If you know it, like, you just know. I defend Nia Jax. I defend. I'm the last person to body shame someone, but I would never body shame someone because of their weight, which I'm not doing to Bertha Faye on this. God rest her soul, because I know she's passed on.
Yep.
But Bertha Faye was just someone that I was just like, ugh, like just repulsed. Number one, because that was the character that they kind of had depicted anyways. And it was like the same thing with Harvey Wippleman. The thought of them like as a couple, it was just like, and
God,
and it was like of all the lowlights of 1995, this is up there. And 1995 was already just like a bad year as it was on multiple reasons. And then this on top of it to kind of end the year out, because I think she was feuding with Medusa around this time, or Alundra Blaze. Luckily, though, Vince decided to put the entire women's division out of its misery that year, which also led to Medusa showing up on Nitro and throwing the belt in the trash can. But pretty much after having to feud with Bertha Faye, I completely understand on why you would fucking want to do that. Yeah, but oh God, that is one that I remember this week that I'm like, holy shit, that actually fucking happened. Like they put those two together as a couple. What?
You know, what was another funny one in that context, which I just remembered as you mentioned this one, was Val Venus and Nicole Bass.
Oh God, yes. Oh,
that one made no sense at all.
The only time that she ever made sense as a valet was when she was with Justin Credible in ECW.
Yep.
That was it, and that worked.
It worked. Yeah,
I had no problem with that whatsoever. It didn't work with Val Venus though. For a multitude of reasons.
No, absolutely not.
And I think she was also hooked up with Sable at one point too. She was Sable's heater.
I think she was, like some kind of valet or something for.
But then she moved on to Val, and it was just like,
yeah, I absolutely hated it. And that was the time when Val was like going through women like every other like couple of weeks, basically.
He did a fucking vignette with goddamn Jenna Jameson.
Yeah, exactly.
So he went from Jenna Jameson to Nicole Bash. You're like, what the? This doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, so she debuted.
And again, I'm not body shaming anyone.
No.
So fucking shut up.
No, but I mean,
Assholes.
listen, like, at that time, though, like, everybody thought she was a man. Like, when she first debuted in
Yes.
WWE, that was everybody's thought.
Yes.
And I remember having conversations like that, like, is that a man?
Yes.
Like, we weren't, saying it to be, like, offensive. We literally thought she was a man at first.
There were a lot of comments and a lot of things that were probably said on commentary that have not aged well.
Oh, 100%.
Be the first one to admit it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be derogatory towards, in that sense. It's just, ugh.
That was
like
the
it's
thought,
just
though. Like, let's
it's
be
the
real.
optics
like,
of it. It's just the optics of it. Like you can just tell. Like you can tell it in movies and television too. And this is a form of entertainment.
Yep.
That when you put two people together, there's just some that just don't give good chemistry, or they just don't look good together. Bertha Faye, Harvey Wippleman, Mark Henry, and Mae Young, and then this situation with Nicole Bass and Val Venus.
Yeah.
These are things of just like this just doesn't go together. It's like so that's the point we're trying to make. We're not trying to shame
Val's
anybody.
character, though.
Yes,
like not
it
even just
didn't make
be
any sense.
aside from like the look aspect. Val Venus's character is like a male porn star character.
Yes,
and you're teaming him up with somebody that can probably like destroy him, basically, who's not the average like style of woman that you would see a character like his with. It's not a knock against her looks. It's just holistically makes no sense. That's truthfully what it was. But also making no sense, I have him with Lita on this slide during their kayfabe wedding, but anybody with Kane really was a bad romantic story. This one was especially bad, but I really do feel that anybody that they stuck with Kane for a love story was just awful.
Well, we have, I think he started out with China.
He did, yep, when they were both in the corporation.
And then I think he moved on to Tori at one point.
I think so.
Yeah. Tori, not, Tori, I'm not talking about Tori Wilson. I'm talking about Tori from DX
Tori. Yep, I think you're right.
And then Katie Vick, but that really wasn't that, Katie Vick. That's less said the better.
Yeah. We can just leave that there.
Redacted.
Yep. Redacted. Yep.
And then of course the Kane Lita. Oh, this.
That was just
Kane Lita was just did not age at all well. It's one of those things of, I think if they could take this whole thing back, they would. Just because it's just a forced marriage. There's other aspects of it that I'm not going to go into great detail of it.
Yeah,
but
it's not.
It's not good. Like it's aged poorly.
Very poorly. Yep.
I think if Kane could take it back, he probably would. Lita especially too, because you kind of. Sure,
I think you can probably leave that one alone too.
There's several that I think Lita might take back.
Like the very first one with S.A. Rios.
That wasn't so bad.
It was stupid.
So bad.
It was
dumb, but it wasn't like it
like
wasn't
this.
to this point.
Yeah.
This is terrible. And this is, but also it led to her siding with Edge, and then that storyline. So that kind of, there was some good to come out of it, but really it wasn't. That would have come whether she was with
either one,
Kane or anybody at all.
Yeah.
So she could have been still with Matt Hardy, and they still would have maybe tried to make that deal.
Yep.
But that's the only part that I kind of. This is the only one where it's like, this is beyond the aspect of gross, and this is just uncomfortable. So that's kind of where, at least from my point of view, I'm like, the less said, the better. But like, another one where you're just like, who thought of this and who thought it was going to work like this? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
What? I mean, just every love story that Kane was in just felt so dumb. Even if you just start with the China one, that was the one that I originally thought of, and then you reminded me about some of these other ones as we were going on this whole week up to the show, and then you mentioned Tori, which I completely forgot about too.
Yeah.
I cannot get over how many love stories Kane had, and I always felt they were stupid because they never matched his character.
No.
At all. No matter if he was the big red machine, whether he was the corporate Kane, whether he was, bald dude taking the mask off, or when he put half the mask back on and had his mouth exposed so he could actually breathe and wrestle. Like, all these different love story angles that they put him in just felt so forced. And obviously, ironically, we're talking about forced marriages and how that works, that story. But just every single love story. I remember when we talked about it before, during the week, about the lead up to the show, like, I might as well just get a picture of Kane. Just leave it there. Because all his love stories were trash.
They all were. It's just, there was certain characters you just can't put in, like, who the fuck is going to love this thing? Like, it's he's supposed to be, like, burned to a crisp. That's how this whole thing started. And then, this is the same dude that is supposedly, in a fire, his backstory, killed his parents. Electrocuted Shane McMahon's testicles. Tombstone Linda McMahon on a ramp. Like, I'm trying to go through. It lit his brother on fire several times in a casket.
Wasn't he the one that pushed Cardona off the ramp that time?
Yes, he was.
Wheelchair?
Yep. Yeah. And then he buried Taker twice alive. Yep. He buried him in 90. He helped Austin do it in 98. Yep. And then in 2010, he did it in a championship match. So he buried his brother alive twice. Like, this character should not be involved in anything love related.
Well,
like, he just shouldn't.
Not only that, but I mean, talk about like unrequited love here, because if you think about it, yeah, he buried the Undertaker twice, and then he also won the tag team championships with him how many times?
Oh God! I remember in 2010 that was their whole angle. They were just like, we're gonna do another Taker Kane feud. I'm like, why? Why? It's been fucking 12 years. Why do we need to rehash this again?
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
I always thought it was stupid, because at the end of the day, like, listen to me, like, it was a good feud when they did that back then. Like, 98, 99, 2000, okay, yep, totally get it. It worked. Rips the door right off the cage, gets in there, the full red outfit and everything, red and black, big red machine Kane.
Right.
And then you get, like, this freaking sideshow after that you just go, what the hell? And listen, I knew they were big on Glenn Jacobs, obviously, right? And he put on a good feud. But then, like, 6 months after that, you're putting him with freaking X-Pac? Like, why?
That was when I lost Kane. Like, yeah. Kane I felt like was lost to me. And everybody remembers it and still laughs about it. There are a lot of people that still hold this moment as really a cool moment. But the minute that they put him on the voice box and he goes, I've got 2 words for you.
Yeah, man.
Stalk it. I'm like, well, Kane's dead. Character's over.
Yep.
That's it. It's over, Johnny. Fuck this thing.
Yeah.
Like, because at that point, it's like, you killed him dead. He just came out and did the suck it thing. Forget it.
It wasn't even the fact that he did it. It was the fact that he did it, like, way too soon into the character.
Way
right?
too.
If they did it, like, 5 years later, sure, whatever, man. Like, you could have evolved the character to that point. But this was in, like, 3 years. Within 3 years, excuse me. To a point where this character, aside from his feud with The Undertaker and the corporation, corporate ministry, whatever you want to call it, it is just so underdeveloped. And they didn't really address the concerns of the fact that he was in the corporate ministry, which is led by his brother, who he hated. That was left unresolved throughout that whole thing, pretty much. He hated it, but that was it. They didn't really touch upon it at all, really, at that point. Yeah, you could say, oh, okay, well, he fought with China against the corporate ministry when they found out, blah, 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 blah. But what happened after that? Nothing! They dropped it!
I remember in '98, Taker and him had a blood feud. Taker set him on fire at Unforgiven. And then within 4 months, they're aligned together. They're working together to get the championship off Austin. I'm like, he just set him on fire 4 months ago. What the fuck is this? Well, how it started was Taker came out and helped him beat Austin at the first blood match at King of the Ring, '98. And then Taker's logic was, well, I didn't want to see my brother get caught on fire. It's like, but he set you on fire 7 months ago, dumbass.
Oh my God.
He tried to kill you.
That Inferno match was so stupid.
He did fly over fire, though. That was cool.
Yeah, dude, listen, it was a cool concept. Don't get me wrong.
Fucking visual of that, him flying over fire. That was fucking sick.
It was, but oh my God. I don't know, man. It was a cool concept. It was a cool match visually for that aspect of it, but I just, oh my God.
He flew over fire, and we're complaining about this.
I know, yeah.
It was so cool. That visual of just him. But yeah, you're right. The match was it was boring, but when he dived over the fire, I was just like, oh my God.
They knew what they were doing with that match, because you could definitely really tell that they pumped up the fire for that part. Because if you remember, as soon as he dove over, the flames went wild. So they knew exactly what they were doing for the spots in that match.
They knew exactly what you were doing, but I still remember just watching that and being like, you tell me another fucking 6'10", 300-pounder that's going to do that.
Yeah.
Seriously. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, I found out about Mike Awesome, and I'm like, oh, okay. I got it now.
Oh my God. But, so somebody else who's on here that I think also had a romance with Kane is, CM Punk's wife, AJ Lee. Speaking of people that had way too many WWE romances.
Well, that was her whole shtick.
And it was garbage.
Yeah, it was her. Well, that was her whole shtick, because it was, I got split personalities, all this stuff.
Yeah, I remember.
But it's just she starts out with Daniel Bryan, and then she starts hooking up with CM Punk, and then she goes to Kane. It's I'm waiting for Ralph Cifaretto to come out and just be like, she's a whore.
As soon as you said Ralph, I was like, oh shit. Listen, this was another one that I said to you that I just want a picture of AJ Lee, and that's it. I don't need anything else, because everything about this was bad.
And I'm not crapping on her either. No. I like AJ.
She was phenomenal talent, especially for that time period.
Yeah, she was great.
She was. But the thing that I find hilarious is that she kind of was a starting point for the whole women's revolution thing. And meanwhile, Daniel Bryan's married to one of the Bella twins. I'm sorry, Garcia.
I just, yes, we have to call them, it's amazing to me that he didn't end up with, a fellow, top female talent. He ended up with
technically
a diva. He ended up with a
fair, but at that time, I don't know.
I mean, come on.
I get both sides of the argument.
How many people have remote shirts? Come on, really?
Oh, God.
It's. I would have thought he would have ended up with somebody maybe a Candice LeRae or something. Somebody that.
Did you just half-handedly compliment Candice LeRae?
She's a good worker.
Who are you?
Just saying. She's
a good worker. Who are you?
She's a good worker.
We were not shitting on her like 2 weeks ago.
More on Gargano than her.
All right, fine. I'll grant you that. Oh
The
man,
JV squad between that was a hell of a line that Mark kept on Ciampa and fucking Gargano. He's just like, oh, it's a JV squad. I'm like, oh, that's funny. Even though apparently to R-Truth are the new DX.
dude, that was so funny when that happened. I was like, whoa. And then both him and Ciampa were like, no.
Thanks, DX.
Yeah,
It's oh,
like,
shit.
why would you say no to that, bro? Like,
No, don't say no to it.
yeah,
Just fucking get some residuals out of that.
exactly.
Like, you guys need a boost. You claim all the boosts you can. Just come out next week with the glow sticks and the DX shirts. You guys want to get over? This is how you do it.
I'm sure Triple H is like, I'll let you be the new DX. Don't
I'll
worry
let you
about
do
it.
That's fine.
Actually, you know what? You're not going to get over anyways. Never mind. He
Nobody
like,
gives
does
a shit about either one of you.
Yeah, dude, which is funny because he does whatever he can for them. Like,
I know, he's
it's
tried so hard.
hilarious. He has, and I think Johnny's got the talent, but like he needs somebody else.
So does Ciampa. It's just
they lack something. I don't know what it is.
Charisma.
God.
I'm sorry. It's fucking true here.
It's funny because it's true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're great in NXT. Okay. Like, I can have a good match with anybody. I mean,
they should have played up. So hold on. So just real quick, I'm not gonna like continue talking about Gargano like this because it's just not worth the time at this moment. But I don't mean it like that. Ironically enough, but if he started a feud with Waller, which is kind of how both have left NXT with that last feud that they had, because Johnny went back down to fight him for HBK basically, and then Waller got called up like a week or two later. I feel like if they did that and had a decent feud, that would probably work. Because Gargano needs somebody that has charisma to play off of. And Waller, despite being an insufferable douchebag, actually has charisma.
He does.
So
he just
that's where they should have gone. And Ciampa, while lacking charisma, is a great like enforcer type. He doesn't really need to have that much charisma. And I just, speaking of these two, I have no idea where Dexter Lumis is at this point because he's been off TV for months.
That's a good question. I've heard he's been doing stuff in Hollywood. He's been injured.
I've heard different things too. I don't know what's true.
I don't know what his deal is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, there's several talents that I've been like, where have they been? Like, I haven't seen them in like 6 months, maybe a year. And I don't know if he's been injured or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're going to reintroduce him at some point. But I feel like to kind of get those two guys probably even more over, or at least a little bit over, that they're going to need to kind of inject him into their kind of team or whatever they're
That's doing. What I'm thinking. But honestly, if you're putting Theory and Waller together, they should be feuding with DIY. Like, it just makes sense. As much as I hate Theory,
Waller has kind of grown on me.
He has a little bit for me too.
I'll be the first one to admit he's kind of grown on me. I don't see Austin Theory. I think that ship has sailed.
I don't think it's sailed per se, but here's my thought. Right, is that Theory has chemistry with all three of them. He's worked with all three of them.
Right.
That's why it would be a great feud between the two teams, basically. If you inject Dexter Lumis coming back into that too, you have a potential to add a third guy for Waller and Theory to maybe play off of. And that would probably get both teams over. Kind of like what they're doing with AOP and Karrion Kross.
Right.
And all of them. The Street Profits and Bobby Lashley. I don't really know if it's actually going to get Karrion Kross over, because it seems like that ship is not leaving the NXT dock anytime soon, even though he's been out of NXT for a while.
I don't get it. Like, because actually, Cornette said it best. He's just like, problem is, whenever I see him and I see Scarlett, I see Mark Merrow as him and I see Sable as Scarlett. Like, at which he's not wrong.
He's not. It's a great analogy. Like,
it's a great analogy because that's the way I've seen it with
Yeah.
with him for the last 2 years,
Yeah.
maybe longer. It's like I look at Scarlett and I'm just like, God damn, and then I look at him and I'm just like, eh. And it's not his fault.
It's
like,
not. He's not bad. Okay, like I would say he's a little bit average, I guess. But I mean, I don't like. I don't know. It's tough because he wants to play this heel character, and he was effective as Killer Cross. But I feel like once he made the jump and they took the killer away, it just has not worked. It hasn't. And as much as Scarlett may try, it hasn't happened. And now you're putting AOP and Ellering with him, and I'm just like waiting for something to happen because they're only showing them in certain respects. So I don't know. Like I feel like the guy's got the talent, he's got the charisma, but he needs to be in a certain niche that he's just not in right now.
I'll give it to Triple H. He has a lot more patience with some of the talent than I would, because he is trying all he can with Karrion Kross to get him over.
Well, it's the same with Gargano and Ciampa.
Absolutely.
Same thing.
Either one of these guys, if they get released in the next 2 or 3 years, they cannot sit there and say, "Oh, the company didn't get behind me."
Yeah, no way.
Because that's bullshit.
Yep.
They have done nothing but try to get these guys over. I mean, there are some talent that, yeah, I can sit there and say, yeah, they didn't do shit. Some of the guys, though, that have gotten chance after chance after chance, at this point, if you don't get over, it's on you. And that's kind of where I look at with Karrion Kross and with Gargano and Ciampa. And that's the sad state, because these guys need to step it up a little bit. I feel like that there's just something missing. They need to go back and kind of figure it all out. They need to figure it out. And I guess, wow, this whole love thing just completely fell off.
Yeah, no.
We're just like, we didn't even get a chance to talk like Al Wilson and like Dawn Marie or anything like that. It's like, well, we'll just flow right into this.
I mean, we could talk about kayfabe, Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae.
Oh, God. You're talking about Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. That was one I was going to bring up. That was part of the year of 2019, the year from hell, as far as creative is concerned. One of the worst T-shirts in wrestling history, because that was the year of the man, right?
Yep.
So for Seth Rollins, they came out with a T-shirt called "The Man's Man."
I remember that shirt. Yep.
And I remember just being like, "That's your world champion who just beat fucking Brock Lesnar, and he's paying second banana to Becky." I said, "This is not going to go over well," and it didn't. Not at all. It completely ruined Seth, where he needed to go through this transformation where he's at now. Like 2019 Seth and 2024 Seth are completely two different characters. This one is the last 2 or 3 years he has had supreme confidence in his ability and his character, where in 2019 he looked like a fucking deer in headlights. And he beat Brock Lesnar twice. Beat him at SummerSlam that year and at WrestleMania. But people remember all the bad shit that he went through that year, which was quite a bit, considering the fact of what he had to deal with the Man's Man T-shirt. It's like, oh, good Lord.
I mean,
that was the point of like, oh no.
I think it's funny when he fought Roman for the title, that Roman was just like, if I wanted somebody to main event with, it'd be your wife. Always calling attention kind of back to this time period. This is a time when I really wasn't paying enough attention, and literally just when you said it, ironically, I found that picture with the Valentine's Day with them on the front of it for the Valentine's Day like kid cards, whatever. And I was just like, oh man, Dan's gonna be so happy for this. Not only plugging WWE Valentine's, but we're calling attention to the not fun romantic story.
That was the only one that I've kind of that I like detested, because I was just like, well, I understand how great they are, like together, like Singularity. Yeah, they're great, they're fantastic, but together, like as a storyline, this is dog shit. Like I feel like they have like no chemistry at this point. And it wasn't anything that they did. It was just like that was the way that it was being perceived. You can't come out with, when you're world champion, you can't come out with a fucking t-shirt that says the man's man on it. You can't do that. And it took him a while to be able to recover from that. I mean, and then he has that storyline. And then the ending for Hell in a Cell against The Fiend. So many bad things just came out from just that situation alone that hurt him, where it was just like, I don't know where he goes from here. Yeah. And thankfully, he has enough talent and enough ability to know, okay, this is what I need to do. Where now he is a credible champion. He's not only a credible champion, but he's a credible character. He's putting in his Hall of Fame work the last couple of years. Like, because 2015, Seth, I was like, he's got something, but he's missing something at the same time. In 2019, I'm just like, he has no confidence with anything right now. Like, as far as his character is concerned. Yeah, in the ring, he's great. But he needed to have more confidence, and he didn't. Like, there was just something lacking. And thankfully, he's been able to get that together. And he hasn't also been pitted with as the man's man anymore. He's been able to stand on his own. But that was bad. Like, that was really bad at that point of, like, you're really putting this guy in a position to fail. And Becky was bulletproof at that point, so she could have taken it and it would have been fine. But for Seth, it was like, he really didn't need this. Like, he's going up against Brock. He's going up against the top stars. You want him to be a top star. Don't make him be second banana to his wife. Or girlfriend at the time, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this was not really a time I was watching too much of it, and when you said
you weren't missing much.
Yeah, I know. I would hear it almost all the time. That's why I kind of chose to continue not really watching it at that point. But just hearing it compared to now and then being married, I think that's why I was a little surprised when you said it. And I remember asking you separately, like, are you serious? And you just go, oh my God, it was awful. And I was like, oh, okay. I'll include that then.
Oh, yeah. I just, it was the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking about Bad Romance. I'm like, this is at the top of the list. And it was not even a storyline. It was just like, they're actually a couple. It was just the marketing of it that I had such a fucking problem with. But they were able to persevere, and we're here now. And Seth could be. Seth is involved in the main event for WrestleMania. Becky
could be. Yep.
All signs are pointing she's going to be considered the main event for WrestleMania. So they're both good. So, like, it's what a difference 5 years makes, you know. So, I don't have any more on the romance stuff. How about yourself? Any
it's funny you say that. I look at some of them a little bit differently because part of it, like, isn't just storyline. Part of it's, like, real life shit, too.
Yeah.
Like, there is, in my mind, no way that Sean Waltham and Joni Lawler should have been together. No way. Just saying the quiet part out loud, literally and figuratively. I just was really shocked to hear about that one, and obviously subsequent films that came out after. Any of the redacted
What
love
tapes?
stories?
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Any of the redacted love stories? Just do not. None of those have aged well.
We thought about. We thought about bringing some up, and then it was like, yeah, probably not the best idea.
I mean, listen, you could even bring up Steve Austin and Deborah, but that's probably not a good idea either.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Not a good idea. We do not condone those behaviors.
We do not.
Like the Stephanie McMahon and Test one was really stupid, I thought.
Oh, God.
I was like, what is the point of this?
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did not. How could I when, the next night they show, Stephanie going to the drive-thru.
How he drugged her. Her.
I know.
Wild. Another thing that hasn't aged well.
No, not at all. At all. Yep. Oh my God. And they're still happily married.
Yes. Good for them.
Oh man, there were so many that you just kind of gloss over sometimes because especially during that Attitude Era, which is so bad. A lot of the ones that Trish had were pretty bad. Not even just redacted, but where she made out with The Rock one time. And then they were going around for a couple weeks. I don't know how kayfabe that was, but supposedly it was. Oh man, there were a couple other ones.
He probably tried. Who knows?
Probably tried and succeeded, but
probably
we'll never know for sure.
I don't know. I don't care.
The Rock and Danny Garcia. I mean, there were so many that have happened over the years that I almost feel like they make no sense. Dom and Rhea have actually grown on me a little bit.
Yes, I'll agree.
Because on paper that was just garbage, especially at the start. I absolutely hated that. And there have been others too that you just look at it like, why? And it's funny that in the context of what we were talking about before, you mentioned Mark Mario and Sable. So that was not good either. That was not good. Yeah. And I remember when she ended up leaving him, just how stupid it actually was. And then the last couple I have are somewhat real life, somewhat storyline. I love Macho Man Randy Savage, but oh my God, he could not treat Elizabeth any more shitty.
Oh God.
Especially in the early days of that whole thing with them. You just treated her like such shit. And then, speaking of Miss Elizabeth, we can't talk about Miss Elizabeth with a bad love story, none other than you know who.
Oh Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said you know who.
Yeah. No, because it just. Yeah, and the weird thing is because there was a time, a couple of years there, where I did kind of. I was like, well, it's obvious he killed her. But now, as time has kind of gone on, you're like, yeah, it was just an accident. I don't think it was.
I think he could have done more to help her.
He could have.
And I'll leave it at that.
I'll leave it at that, too. I think that. And I've heard the 911 calls where he was just panic stricken. But in that situation, too, I mean, that's a tough one.
I agree. But at the end of the day, listen, here's like I said, I'm going to leave it at he could have done more to help her.
He could have.
And the reason I'm going to say that is he knew she had a problem.
He did.
Should have done more
he had his own problem too. So
he
it's
did,
like,
and listen,
yeah.
like I totally get that. I understand that. No problem. But he could have done more.
I know. I agree.
So yeah, those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. I know there's other ones out there. I'm sure that, you know, if people leave any comments on this video, they can kind of come up with their own or others that they might remember. Whether they
I would love to hear some of them because there's
I
probably
would too.
some that were like, oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, exactly. One of the good ones, you know, we talked about this one in the chat. I asked you if we want to include it because I thought it was just hilarious all the time. Was Otis and Mandy Rose? That was a good one.
That was a good one. Like that was number one because, and I actually made a post about that a couple of years ago, and somebody was just like, you just like it because you think that we all have a shot. It's like, well, no, none of us have a shot.
Yeah.
Like none of us have a shot. It's just it's when things just come together. Like Otis has always been a character of he's excellent at this.
He is.
He's just excellent at this. And he has a good character. At the time he had a great character of this shy guy that reminded me of Chris Farley that could do anything virtually in the wrestling ring.
Yep.
And then you have Dolph Ziggler thrown in there in the mix, and they're fighting for her love and attention and all this stuff. It was very well done. And I will say this, and I don't say it often. Mandy Rose is a lot better than people give her credit for.
Oh, 1,000%.
Not only as a character, but also as a performer.
Yep.
And this whole storyline, it could have went to shit real quick. This was one of those deals of if it was somebody like one of the Bellas, I feel like this would have went to shit.
Yeah.
But I feel like with Mandy Rose's talent, it went right there because she knew what to do. She knew the play, she knew the part that she had to play, and she did an excellent job with it.
Yep.
That's why I like it. It's because of the fact that everybody knew the role that they were playing. They didn't try to force anything. It was done in a real sweet, kind of elegant way, and it pulled off in the end. They pulled it off.
Yeah. No, 1,000%. Otis is really good with this character work. Always kind of has been. Plays that kind of dopey character, and just chicks love him. Which, you know, I feel like now they're paying it forward with the Maxine character. Having him kind of do similar things there. I feel like they've kind of let that go to the wayside the past couple of weeks, but it's still just very, very funny. And Mandy Rose, like you said, I feel is just criminally underrated.
She doesn't get enough credit. She probably never will. I hope she comes back. I hope they bring her back at some point. It's like, look,
the last two Rumbles, literally, I'm sitting there like, Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose.
Yeah.
Mandy Rose. Because I wanted to come back.
I do too. Like, the thing about it is she loves the industry.
She does.
She loves it. She loves what she was doing. Not many people in that spot are willing to go back to NXT, and because some people would think about it as a demotion. She got fucking better.
100% did. Yep.
She got a lot better. They put her with Toxic Attraction. She raised that title up to an excellent standard. Like, there were a lot of things that she did, and I'm not just saying that because, oh, she's a 10. She's a fucking 12.
Like, she's a 15,
more than a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can argue she's a 15. But it's just, the fact is that she has the talent, she has the ability, she earned her right, she needs to come back.
100%.
Like, and there's been worse things for that company that you've gotten. Like, Matt Riddle getting fired, I 100% understood.
Yeah.
Mandy Rose, it was like, I understood, but I didn't like it.
Yep. We're on the same page with both of those issues. I 100% agree. It's just, I found it very unfortunate. And, you know, like, I think she was told she's going to lose, and then, like, that night or the next day or whatever, then they actually told her she's really fired. Like, just, come on. Like, I get it. I get why you did it, but just stop the press right now. Erase that. Don't do that. Like, I just, it really, really annoyed me, because I was really enjoying her run as champion. longest reigning champion at that point, unified the belts.
My question is, who was the person who made that call?
I don't know.
That's
Whoever
the
it was
hard
was
part
an idiot.
for me.
Yeah.
I think now with TKO, I think they'd be able to. They'd be like, yeah, fuck it, whatever.
I feel like you're right. All right. Do you have, before we get any further, because I feel like we're getting to that stage anyways, have anything else from this week that you might want to talk about?
Oh, well, the safest wrestling company, once again, AEW, they recorded for Rampage, Sammy Guevara versus Jeff Hardy. And apparently, Sammy Guevara, the Hardy Killer, as you can call him, in a few years back, he was involved in the Matt Hardy incident. There were two of them that I distinctly remember, where he threw a chair at Matt, busted him wide open on TV. And he threw the chair wrong. And that caused Matt to get a cut, busted open,
Yep.
what have you. Then there was the incident for their, I guess it was a last man standing match or I forget what the fuck it was. But they were on a scissor lift. Sammy speared Matt. Matt was supposed to fall through a table to kind of break his fall. He didn't. He landed head first and hit the back of his head on the concrete and was concussed. They didn't stop the match. The match kept going. And they got major criticism for that, as they should have. So last night, it was Guevara and Jeff Hardy. Guevara went for a shooting star press. His knee hit Jeff's head. Jeff broke his nose and was knocked unconscious. Instead of calling the match off, they still went into their finish sequence, Sammy v. Jeff. But again, broke his nose. You're worried about his concussion. And instead of, the doctor was informed by the referee. But again, they continued the match. Where if that was WWF, that would have been stopped.
I mean, listen, the best example is a couple weeks ago with Theory and Carmelo Hayes.
Yes.
They both looked okay. I think it was more of a shock thing. They called the match.
Right.
And, both said they were okay that night. But out of an abundance of caution, they called the match. And that was the right move.
I don't think anybody really complains. Like, I don't hear anybody bitching and moaning anymore about match stoppages. Because they understand now with the way that things are medically and head injury wise, you can't take any risks. Jeff Hardy is also in his mid to late 40s and has had a history of problems. Let me just put it to you like that. And I've been critical. I
think we both have.
But we all have. I think me and you have been very critical. And the thing about Jeff is that I understand he's a star. And I get all that. And whenever somebody tells me that, like, well, he's such a big star, it's like, yeah, I get it. But when you go to a pay-per-view main event loaded, I have a hard time really accepting you in any fashion as a top star. I just do.
What if it was the Sandman? What if it was Steve Austin? I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm kidding around. I'm not serious.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, and it's just like but you can tell with Austin and with Sandman. I never could tell that they were loaded. where Jeff that
No,
night,
this was very
it
obvious.
was
Yeah.
obvious. It was so obvious from the minute he walked out of the curtain. You're like, oh, fuck. And that kind of, and I'm sure that there's probably people that are like, oh, why don't you just move on from it? It's hard. It's hard to move on when the guy literally fucked an audience over.
You know what?
Pay-per-view audience.
Hold on a second. If somebody was to say that, whether it be in the comments or to us specifically, I would just tell them straight out, I still haven't forgiven Bill Goldberg for kicking Bret Hart. So don't tell me to get over it. Don't tell me to get over it.
I'm not going to get over it. I'm never over it. Okay? I'm not over David Tyree and Eli Manning at Super Bowl 42. You think I'm going to be over this?
I'm just not going to go there.
I know. I didn't want to either. But
I know, but I guess since I brought up Bill Goldberg, you might as well go there too.
I had to. Okay? Man. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks that Jeff is in this situation. It sucks that the man still has to be a performer working for this company and taking risks because of the fact that he's had issues. So he probably didn't save his money. He's probably going to bank everything. I mean, I understand why Matt keeps working. He's got 19 kids.
Yeah.
And a wife who's ready to leave him at any point. So I get it. I fucking get it. But it's difficult to see two guys that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, set a new standard in wrestling as far as tag teams are concerned. That helped build a complete revolution. And to see Jeff Hardy having to work on a taped show for Friday nights, and they've been stuck there. They haven't been on Collision or Dynamite. They've been booked on Rampage, which is the death spot for that company. It's 10 o'clock on fucking Friday nights. So it's just, and all this stuff, because that's all I've heard for months. I remember the press conference that they had, I think it was after World's End, when they were like, we're the safest wrestling company. He's in this fucking stupid Russian hat with the sunglasses on after he's getting questions about sexual misconduct rumors with Chris Jericho and NDAs that were supposedly signed or not signed, allegedly. And here he is sitting there and saying that we are the safest pro wrestling company. You can look at our track record. Well, I'm looking at your track record right now, and the fact is that when you have an incident like that happening, where one of your talents gets hit in the head from a high-flying move like that, you need to fucking call it. You need to say, that's it, move on. If the fans don't like it, tough shit. But you need to be able to protect the talent. And he hasn't done that. There's numerous times, where someone was clearly hurt that a match should have been stopped, and it wasn't stopped. And don't give me this bullshit. Well, they told me come on. Really, you're gonna come to me with that?
I mean, listen, even if you just talk regular safety, right? They had a guy a couple weeks ago try to do a standing moonsault, and he landed on his neck.
Yes.
You had months ago where Bryan Danielson is walking, I believe, to the ring or back to the back, excuse me. I don't remember which. And his leg gets caught between the ramp and the ring.
I remember that.
Yep. And when I say stuck, they had to push on that ramp to get him loose. If you're taking all these safety precautions, why is it not shown at all? And I'm not trying to be insulting to the guy, but I'm just going to say, we're not anti-AEW. But we just don't like Tony Khan. Let's clarify that now. But at the end of the day, this is another example, and it's a glaring one. Because I posted the picture on the slide, and you can clearly see Sammy's knee. I got it right at impact. He's got his knee right in his head. And I don't know if Sammy just overcommitted, and that's why he had a weird turn like that. to hit him in the head? Because
It's a common thing. I mean,
It
I remember
is.
Billy Kidman. It happened to Chavo Guerrero back
Yep.
in the early 2000s.
I remember.
It happens. Like
Yeah.
it's just you do that move so many times, and it's just like, oh, you know. But the problem is that Brock Lesnar, like
Is
that's
another
all I
perfect
need to
example
like a
of
perfect example
why.
of just like yes, you can physically do the move. I understand that, but you also have to think about the other person, or if you land incorrectly,
So
because
the thing with Brock's, to me, I don't want to cut you off. I apologize, but the thing with Brock is
no,
like Angle was way too far away.
yes, he was, but he almost made it. He was
He
so
did
close.
almost make it. I agree.
He was so close, and it's just if he was 2 feet over, he probably would have hit it.
100%.
But it just the moment he didn't think about it, he's just like fuck it.
Yeah, because
I'm
he was
already
thinking,
up at
I'm
that
going to hit this
point.
move.
Yeah, and it's like shit. It's funny in the video game though; it's always perfect. Always perfect. That's the video game.
It's funny you mentioned Kidman, though, because his was almost always perfect, too.
It was, but even the best at it, it's just you have an off night,
Yep. 100%.
and it can be, and that's kind of. And Sammy's a great talent. I would rather have I would take a Sammy Guevara over a Weller or an Austin Theory, because the thing about Guevara is that he's the perfect heel because every time he sticks his tongue out at you, you want to punch him in the fucking face.
I mean, I wouldn't do that with Waller in theory either way.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing about Guevara is the fact that he's such a good worker.
He is.
Like he's better than both of them. He's better than both of them in the ring.
I agree.
And he just has that personality too. If you just want to punch him in the face. And the problem is that they never know what to do with him in that company. But that's a consistent thing with most of the talent.
Yeah. We've talked about that at nauseum in certain points and just random conversations that not just Sammy, but a good chunk of the roster, they just don't know what to do with it. They just don't. And that extends from multiple facets, not just Tony Khan, because I feel like there's others that do help him that are in the same situation of not knowing what to do with some of their talent. Sammy's one that should be in the main event. He should be against MJF or whoever the world champion is going to be and really be in that scene with everybody else. He is one of the pillars of their company. Whether they want to admit that or not is up to them, but he is. He had a great ladder match against Cody Rhodes for the TNT title, I believe it was.
Yes.
And
Cody's last match in the company.
Yep, it was. Not under contract, too, from what has been said when that match took place. And again, he had other great matches, too. He's had great matches with a good chunk of the roster. To me, it baffles me that he's not in that main event scene as much as he could be. Especially at his age, being as young as he is, along with some of the other pillars like MJF, that really could be there. Because MJF is a good worker, don't get me wrong, and he's amazing on the mic and very talented, but he's not Sammy in the sense that Sammy's a lot funner to watch. He pulls stuff out of the bag that MJF is not going to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But at the same token, it's a situation where he's not the only one that this is happening to. You know, they put the title on Moxley for a while, and what's he doing now? Like, matches in the gymnasium or whatever? Like,
pretty
dude's
much
all over the place. And you bring in Will Ospreay, you're going to bring in Okada, and what are they going to do?
Like, Sasha Banks.
Yeah, Sasha Banks as well. And what's going to happen? Because they only have so many titles, even though they have Ring of Honor, too, I guess. They have way too many titles if you include those ones. And at the end of the day, what's the point? you're creating more of an unsafe working environment by bringing in some of these people like a CM Punk, who is in his mid-40s, trying to come back after 7-8 years at that point, and putting him up against these younger guys who are not the safest of workers. I'm surprised Adam Copeland hasn't died yet. Or Edge for that. Or Edge, excuse me. Christian has not died yet at this point. I'm surprised Hardy this is his first real, true injury since being there. Like, it baffles me. Because you see some of the highlight bloopers, I almost want to call them, and just think, what is going on there? Safest company, my ass.
Some of the talent just doesn't want to listen. Like, they just, you hear from like Tully Blanchard and like Arn Anderson, and they're just like, yeah, they never listen to us. Tell them to slow down. They don't listen to us. You know, we tell them, we give them advice, and they're just like, well, I'm already signed, so I really don't need to take any advice. You had Adam Hangman Page, who at one point openly, as the world champion, admitted that he doesn't take advice from veterans. And it's just like,
it just tells me you don't.
This is why you're not gonna succeed.
Yeah, it just tells me you don't want to get better and that you're happy being mediocre, basically.
It's like, this is why that you're having a problem drawing a third of the building or half the building. This is why that last night that you maybe drew 3,000 people in a 10,000 seat building. It's just, it's the perception of it. It's the perception that people have, and they look at this company as second rate. They're the coldest wrestling promotion that I have ever seen at any point since 1995. And I've been around since I saw WCW in the year 2000.
The year 2000.
I saw TNA 12 years ago. And it doesn't even pale in comparison.
And you saw Tyrus versus EC3.
Exactly. Saw what happened with the NWA and their Coke spot. It's a tough pill for me to kind of sit here and swallow. Because the problem that I have is, and I tell everybody this with AEW, I'm like, the real reason I hate it, and I hate a lot of the fans that love it so much, some of the diehards, is the fact that they claim that this was the greatest wrestling company of all time before they even had one fucking show.
I know.
That was the problem I had, like right out the gate. And yeah, for 2 or 3 years, they were doing very well. They were doing great. They were off to the races. I was like, they have no excuse now. 2021, I remember sitting there the day they signed Danielson and Adam Cole in one shot. And they just signed CM Punk 2 or 3 weeks earlier. I said, they have no excuse now. They have none. If they're going to be successful, it's right now with the talent that they have now. And the problem is that Okada and Will Ospreay are two of the best wrestlers on the planet right now. But the problem is everybody who knows who they are and care about who those guys are already watching your program.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're not adding any new views at all.
You're not adding anybody. You're just fulfilling your already. Wait till Okada comes. Wait till Will Ospreay comes. Yeah, who the fuck's gonna watch?
Yep.
Like, are you gonna add? Because, and I hate to say this, because I love a good hardcore. Like, I love a good 5-star, 6-star quality match. I love them. I'm not gonna shit on Dave for his rating system.
So first of all, you're gonna shit on him, but maybe just not for that.
Not for that, but I am, because he's not telling you the full story in the sense
he's
of.
Not. I agree.
No one gives a shit about match quality. The casual wrestling audience does not give a shit about match quality. They don't.
They don't. I agree.
WrestleMania 3, Hogan and Andre. They remember the Hogan Slam.
Yep.
They don't remember the 5 minutes of the bear hug.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they don't remember Andre barely being able to move because of his back.
Yeah.
They don't remember that.
No, they don't at all.
They remember slam, leg drop, 1, 2, 3. That's what they remember. In fact, that was the worst. It was voted worst match of the year by the Observer that year. Pro Wrestling Observer, the Wrestling Observer, which again is the editor in chief of that is Dave Meltzer.
Yep.
So, where, and tell me when I'm telling lies, because I'm not.
All right, punk, settle down.
Just saying.
I know it was funny. It's funny because at the end of the day, though, when we talk about like AEW, we talk about Meltzer and how big on AEW he is. You're right though, like the casual fan and sometimes even fans like us just don't care about it.
No.
If it has good ring psychology and a good story to it, I'll watch it. If it's like a throwaway on Collision, I have a 50-50 shot of watching it. It depends on the match. If they advertise the match for like, what was it? It was the first match with MJF and CM Punk. I'm gonna watch that.
Yeah.
I don't know why they televised it. I don't know why it was free.
Not the first one, no.
Yeah.
You never give away. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, but you're right. Because
you
don't.
never give away a first time matchup for free. You don't.
Especially that matchup.
No. The rematch you can give away on TV. But the first one you make people pay for.
Exactly.
And
this was like a 30-minute match too.
Yeah. And they did it in a way where I'll give them credit though, because the finale and the dog collar match was great.
It was. Yep.
So I'll give him that. Like, I'll give him his due and say, okay, you turn that into something great. But I'm against it only because of the fact that you never have a one-on, like the first time meeting, you never do it on free TV.
Nope.
Never do it on free TV.
Not a matchup like that. No way.
WCW didn't learn from that. Like, that was a WCW move. That's what they did with Hogan and Goldberg. They gave it away for free. I mean, I understand why. Because they wanted to pop a number. They were in WCW's backyard. So they just said, well, there's going to be a lot of executives there. We want, and I understand why they did it. But they cost themselves some money.
They did. But that was also like Monday Night Wars still. I mean,
yeah,
a little bit different.
And it made sense. Correct. But now, you never do a first-time matchup on free TV. No. You just don't.
Absolutely not.
There's a reason why they're going to do Rhea versus Becky at WrestleMania. Because people want to watch it at WrestleMania. They don't want to watch it on free TV. If you throw it away on a random Monday Night Raw, no one's going to give a shit.
I mean, listen, man, it was the same with Cody and Roman.
Exactly.
You don't give that away for free. You don't put that on, like, Backlash. Put it on fucking WrestleMania. It makes sense. You gotta sell. And from that and from other shit that went down, that's why they're doing it again.
Exactly.
And whether or not the whole Rock thing is work, a shoot, a little bit of both, a little bit of listening to the fans, whatever the case may be, obviously they learned that they need to do it again. And this time, you mentioned the stats earlier, and I hope they stay true to them, and I hope it's Cody. But at the end of the day, we'll have to just kind of see what happens. But you got any other final thoughts on you?
No, I think I have exasperated what I've needed to talk about tonight. Good Lord. I just looked at the time. I'm like, well, again, over 3 hours. That's fun.
Yeah, that's another reason why I'm asking, because I think I'm also running out of gas on this episode. But you want to shoot out your plug?
Oh, as always, be sure to also check me out on the Pro Wrestling World Talks podcast. You can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. Tomorrow, or this week's episode, I guess because coinciding. We actually recorded on Saturday night. John texted me randomly, and he's just like, "I'm so high on edibles. Let's do a show." So I'm like, "Okay." So our whole it's going to be called Pot Talk, and pretty much I think maybe a third of it's wrestling. We talk about Seinfeld. We talk about the NBA, like NFL, random stuff. But maybe like a third of it to maybe half of it is wrestling related. So that's always one to fun watch. He also brought up. He's just like, so I heard you have a new show. So I was able to get my first plug for the shoot on Pro Wrestling World Talks.
Nice.
So now everything is starting to come together where it's just like I'm going to be plugging everything at some certain point.
Oh, man, it's going to be so gratuitous and shameless. I can't
Yes.
wait. I can't wait. All right, my dude. I think that's it for us. I hope everybody likes, favorites, subscribe, shares, and whatever they need to for this video. Please subscribe, definitely, for sure. You can also catch us on social media. My name is Mac with Dan, and I hope you guys had a great time with us. Bye!
Peace out!